This paladin is so despicable. This video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyrights or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 26 Sleeping Beauty. Watching Wright walk away with the other man arm in arm, Emily looked confused, and she quietly asked a punishment Black Knight next to her. "Excuse me, who was that sturdy paladin just now?" "Miss Emily, be careful, that is the apprentice Holy Son, His Highness Saint Taylor. After His Highness Wright left, he is almost the leader of the younger generation of the Paladin Order. So he calls Wright brother-in-law." The punishment Black Knight suddenly hesitated, and then lowered his voice. "That's because His Highness Saint Taylor's sister is the famous apprentice Saint Lady Saint Jonah. Over the years, His Highness Jonah has always been in love with His Highness Wright, and everyone thinks they are particularly suitable. At this time, Wright pulled Taylor to a corner where no one was, and Taylor gave him a big bear hug. Boss, you're finally back. Okay, let me ask you, was your sister really assassinated?" Taylor patted his chest and said firmly, "Dead. Really? I saw it with my own eyes." "Hiss. Looking at your state, it doesn't look like you saw it with your own eyes, but more like you killed her with your own hands." Wright kept stroking his earlobe. "Are you sure she's completely dead?" "This." Taylor suddenly became embarrassed, and Wright's face immediately turned cold. "If you have something to say it now." "No, brother. Listen to me. This matter is rather strange. My sister was indeed assassinated at that time. But you also know that my sister was an apprentice saint and the favorite of the goddess. How could she not have any protection measures? After her death, the divine spell cast by the goddess on her took effect immediately. Originally, she should have been bathed in the grace of God and resurrected under the baptism of holy light. But I don't know what went wrong. Although she regained her vitality, she fell into a deep sleep and has not woken up yet." Wright was stunned for a moment. "Why, she became a vegetable? Ah, what is that?" It's okay, go on." The Holy See tried many ways to wake her up. Divine arts, magic, alchemy, witchcraft, medicine, but unfortunately, none of them succeeded in the end. The Pope even prayed personally and asked the goddess to help, but he failed to save her. Wright's brows were twisted into a ball. The goddess is also helpless. Although he did not get along with the goddess of holy light, he also knew that the other party was at least a god. If the god level means are ineffective, it will be a big trouble. "But brother, you are back. My sister can finally be saved." Wright sighed and patted Taylor on the shoulder. "Don't hold too much hope. But we are brothers after all. For your sake, I will definitely do my best to wake up Jonah. No need to be so troublesome. Brother, go kiss my sister now, and she will wake up." "Your sister is pretending." No. Taylor waved his hands repeatedly. "I also heard it from others. The sleeping princess needs a kiss from her loved one to wake up. I don't know what happened recently, but this saying has been circulating in the holy city. The Pope and everyone in the temple also called you back with the mentality of giving it a try. Maybe a kiss will wake her up. Just like what is said in fairy tales." "Hey, boss, why do you suddenly look so ugly?" Wright stared at him. "Taylor, I have a serious question for you. Is there a strange fragrance on your sister recently?" Taylor couldn't help but widen his eyes. "Boss, how do you know?" "It's not recent. It's been more than a year. It was very light at first, and then gradually became stronger. I also asked her what perfume she used, and it smelled pretty good. She insisted that she had never used it, and she didn't know what was going on. Is it because she has a strange fragrance that more men are pursuing her?" Taylor immediately shook his head. "No. Boss, you are not here. I must keep an eye on my sister. Besides, my sister doesn't even look at other people except you." Wright didn't say anything, but his brain was working fast. Now it seems that Jonah is also a witch. If this is true, then the rumors about Sleeping Beauty in the Holy City are fanned by someone with ulterior motives, or is it a simple coincidence? Wright dare not act rashly now. He also wants to save Jonah, but what if this is part of the enemy's plan? What if kissing is part of the witch feast? The Blood Witch knows the conditions for all witches to start the feast, and the one who attacked the Pope's palace this time is an ancestor level blood clan. The two are linked together, and people have to think more. We have to investigate this matter thoroughly, and can't be led by the enemy. Before that, Jonah can only wait. Wright patted Taylor on the shoulder and asked guiltily, "Brother, can you understand?" "Boss, you are being polite. I'm not very smart, but I know that as a brother, you have never betrayed me. We are still the same as before. You make the decision, and I'll do it." Wright was moved and punched him on the shoulder. "Don't just talk nice things. I really need something now. Help me find a place to stay." "Do I need to look for it? Your original yard has always been there. My sister will go there to clean up on weekdays. You can just go back and live there." "Okay, let's go." The two of them walked back to the carriage arm in arm, and happened to meet the captain of the paladin squad just now, who was talking to Kelst with a sad face. "Brother, you are here. Come on. Brothers. This is my boss. Say hello to the boss." The paladins lined up quickly. "Boss. Hello." Wright's mouth twitched. Is this the trend in the paladin order now? The teacher doesn't care? Taylor laughed dryly. No. Oh, by the way, Johnson, why are you crying? "Brother, boss, we were just talking about it. Now that the holy sword has been pulled out, won't we lose a large amount of income in the future? How can we explain to the military when we go back?" Taylor curled his lips. "My boss is back. Isn't it much better than that little income? Will you settle the accounts?" But Wright reached out and grabbed Taylor. "No, we still have to make this money." Taylor's eyes suddenly lit up. "Boss, do you have another idea? If it's really gone, can't you get a high imitation and insert it next to it? Add some magic arrays to test the holy light qualifications. Make it harder to pull it out. At most, charge less. Find another batch of swords that are the same in appearance and sell them as souvenirs. Remember, there are different grades. For ordinary ones, it's enough to be similar in shape. For fine ones, the workmanship should be better, and then baptized with holy water. The collector's edition should be almost identical, and the packaging box must be high-end and classy. Remember to ask the clergy to add blessings. The higher the position, the better, but not too high. Finally, make 100 limited editions. The quality is the same as the collector's edition, but the packaging should be more gorgeous. At least blessed by the Archbishop level senior officials, and the number is unique. Limited sale. Oh, yes. Make another version of children's toys, small and cute. Expand the children's market. Run it according to my method, and guarantee that the income will at least increase tenfold." The paladins couldn't help but exclaimed in admiration, looking at Wright with awe in their eyes. What if the high quality imitation is pulled out again? Wouldn't that be better? Put the sword back in, and recruit the person directly into the Holy Knights. "Yes, boss." Wright looked up at the sun. "It's getting late. I'll take the people back first. Taylor, come to my house for dinner tonight." "Okay, boss." After saying goodbye to everyone, Wright took Emily on the carriage. Under the protection of the Black Knight guards, they slowly drove into the Holy City from the East Gate after 3 years. Halfway through, he took out a scroll with the devil's mark from his arms, and tore it into pieces gently. The remains of the scroll turned into a ball of purple fire, and disappeared in an instant. Emily looked at him curiously. "What are you doing?" "Send a signal to Lilith and let her meet me. I hope she has found some useful information." Chapter 27. I was careless and didn't dodge. The wheels slowly turned, and Wright looked at the familiar yet unfamiliar street scene, with mixed feelings in his heart. Emily was surprised. After all, the Holy City was the largest and most prosperous city in the world, with too many magnificent and rare things to take in. But as the carriage continued to move, the surroundings gradually became quiet. Obviously, they had left the prosperous area where tourists and pilgrims stopped and entered the real core area of the Holy City. "Your Highness, we are here." Finally, the carriage slowly stopped, and Wright took Emily out of the carriage, and what came into view was a small manor. "Is this your residence?" Emily seemed very shocked. Although she came from a remote small place and her family had fallen, she was of noble origin after all, so she naturally understood what the manor in front of her meant. If it was in her hometown, there were plenty of wild mountains and ridges, and the manor could be built as big as she wanted. but this can be said to be the most distinguished area in the holy city, and it is no longer something that can be described as an inch of land and gold, let alone the manor. Just wanting to have a foothold here is not something that secular power and money can do. Emily has always been vague about how noble Wright's status is in the Holy Light Church, but after seeing this manor, she immediately had an idea. Yes, this is where I live. The architectural style is so strange, it doesn't fit in with the surrounding buildings. But there is a kind of unspeakable beauty. Thank you for the compliment. This is the style of my hometown. When mentioning his hometown, Wright's eyes rarely flashed a trace of loneliness. Let's go. I haven't been back for 3 years. The yard may be a little messy, don't mind. He reached out to unlock the formation on the door, and the door of the manor slowly opened, but everyone couldn't help but exclaimed. The manor was very clean and tidy. The flower garden was full of flowers, and there were fish swimming in the pool. It didn't look like no one had lived there for 3 years. Emily looked around and stared at Wright's faint opening. It seems that someone has been thinking about you and often helps you clean and tidy up. Wright did not speak. Before he came, he had learned from Taylor that Jonah had been helping him manage the manor, but he did not expect that the other party would be so attentive. Let's go. Kelst, tell the brothers to move all the luggage in. I've troubled the brothers to run around these days. I'll treat everyone to dinner tonight. No one is allowed to leave. If you leave, you're not giving me face. Kelst and others were naturally very happy. It is our honor to dine with His Highness. Brothers, help His Highness move all the things in. They walked towards the small building along the cobblestone road with their luggage and sundries. Emily looked around as she walked. Your Highness Wright, the girl who takes care of the manor for you must like you very much. Wright rolled his eyes. You understand now? Appreciating gardening is a compulsory course for nobles. What's more, things that are poured with deep love and effort always look so special and easy to distinguish. As the saying goes, time reveals a person's heart. The weight of love is different between a momentary impulse and a long-term persistence. Of course, if there is a man who loves you deeply, just pretend I didn't say anything. Wright snorted coldly and looked Emily up and down. Have you ever been in love since you were a child? Emily, who was just talking clearly, was stuck in an instant, hesitating and unable to speak. Her pretty face flushed. You haven't even practiced once, and you come to give me advice? You dare to teach, but I dare not listen. You. Humph. Although Wright said so, he was still a little moved when he looked at the neat and beautiful manor. In any case, Jonah should be thanked. Arriving in front of the small building, Wright stretched out his hand to push open the entrance door on the first floor, while turning his head to explain to everyone. You just put your things in the living room on the first floor first, and we will sort out the rest ourselves. However, when he turned his head and saw his living room clearly, he froze in his place. Wow. It's so beautiful. Emily and the Black Knights following behind him also exclaimed. The living room was covered with a red carpet and a pink and white flower door. Wherever you look, there are gold decorations inlaid with rubies and holy silk veils, plus red roses and statues of the goddess of light everywhere. How can this be a living room? This is clearly a standard wedding room in the style of the Holy Church. It's the best one. The most exaggerated thing is that there is a big wedding portrait hanging on the wall opposite the entrance door. The bride in the portrait is wearing a gorgeous wedding dress of the Holy Church, which is so beautiful. And next to her, wearing the wedding clothes of the Holy Church bridegroom, smiling very happily, is Wright himself. Bang! Wright closed the door, covered his face with one hand, and held the door with the other. What's going on? Did I go to the wrong door? Impossible. This is my home. Could it be that I'm tired from traveling so much that I have some kind of hallucination? Emily covered her mouth and blinked her big eyes. You are married? Wright was furious. Of course not. I'm a good young man with a bright future. How could I get married at such a young age? There must be a problem in some link. Yes, it must be that I opened the door in the wrong way. I'll try again. Wright took a deep breath and pushed the door open again. Unfortunately, the scenery in the living room remained the same. The top-notch Saint religious wedding decoration and the super large wedding photo of the man and woman, who were extremely well matched, were quietly placed there. That woman The touch of emotion that Wright had just felt in his heart disappeared in an instant. I was careless. I should have been alert when Taylor mentioned to me that she was helping me take care of the manor. Damn it, 3 years of wandering life made me relax my vigilance. Plus the news of her fake death. I completely let down my guard. I didn't expect that she would leave me such a big surprise. Hey? So she is the girl who has always loved you. Emily walked into the room slowly, with her hands behind her back, looking at the wedding photo. She has always been very confident about her appearance and figure, but at this moment she couldn't help but grumble quietly. It's quite nice. Wright took a deep breath and greeted the Black Knights expressionlessly. Everyone put your things here, and then help me dismantle all these scenery. Emily stopped Wright and said, why are you dismantling it? It's so beautiful. Do you know that this is the dream of every Saint Church girl? If you don't dismantle it, are you going to keep it for wedding planning? Isn't it annoying for me to see it? Wright pointed to the stairs leading to the second floor. Go. The second room to the south of the stairs will be your residence in the future. Go and see for yourself. Don't make trouble here. I'm annoyed. Emily was reluctantly sent to the second floor, and the Black Knights quickly put down their luggage and started to dismantle the wedding-related arrangements. Wright even took the huge wedding portrait himself. Just as he was thinking about whether to burn the photo, Emily's scream suddenly came from upstairs. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 28 Horrible Vision. What happened? Wright led a group of Black Knights and rushed to the second floor at the fastest speed. As a result, they saw Emily standing in the master bedroom, holding a child's clothes in her hand, her eyes shining. So cute. Look, I guess she must have made this herself. Wright's eyes darkened, and he subconsciously held the door frame. This was because the master bedroom was decorated like a dream wedding room, just like the living room on the first floor. There were 2 pillows on the bed. The meaning was self-evident. There was a double bathtub in the bathroom. The use was self-evident. In the cloakroom next to it, children's clothes from childhood to adulthood were neatly placed. And this little sock. Look. Isn't it cute? Celts and the Black Knights looked at each other, and no one said a word. It was cute, but they were afraid of irritating Wright again. Wright pointed at Emily with gritted teeth. Who told you to go into the master bedroom? The second room on the left at the staircase is the guest bedroom. What's more, how can you run around without the owner's permission? As a noble, have you forgotten this basic etiquette? The guest bedroom is unavailable, so I came out for a walk. How is that possible? Although that room is called a guest bedroom, it is only a little smaller than the master bedroom. Emily suddenly showed a sly smile. You still don't believe it? Then let's go and see. Wait. I suddenly don't want to see it. She immediately pulled right to the guest room without saying anything, followed by a group of people who were watching the fun. Emily pushed open the door of the guest room with a snap, and 4 neatly arranged baby beds appeared in front of everyone. It turned out that this guest room had long been converted into a nursery. No wonder Emily said it was unavailable. Emily waved a small sock in front of Wright with one hand and patted his shoulder with the other hand. That's great, Your Highness Wright. She wants to give you 4 children. You'll be busy in the future. Wright looked at the 4 cribs with empty eyes. I don't think so. Suddenly, the commander of the punishment Black Knights, Celts, who had been silent, stood up and pointed out the loophole in Emily's words. If it's just a simple plan to have 4 children, then you only need to prepare 1 or 2 cribs. After all, when the children grow up, the cribs can be used by the next brother or sister. 4 cribs were prepared at once. This means that Princess Jonah is planning to give birth to quadruplets for Princess Wright. Oh, that makes sense. As expected of the captain. Your analysis is so accurate. Actually, I thought so too, but unfortunately the captain got there first. Emily was obviously very unconvinced. What a joke. Quadruplets. Twins depend on luck. You said that if you are pregnant with quadruplets, then you will have quadruplets? Miss Emily, please don't question the ability of the great goddess of light. The goddess will especially bless clergymen of the level of Princess Wright and Princess Jonah. What's more, the offspring born from the combination of the two are very likely to have extremely high holy light talents. Even for the future of the Church of Holy Light, the goddess will definitely support them to the maximum extent. Emily pouted. Okay, you are awesome. But I have just analyzed the genders of the 4 children from the colors and styles of the baby clothes. The Knight Commander immediately became excited. Oh, really? I'd like to hear more. Wright clenched his hand and summoned his holy sword, Zui Guang. While stroking the sword, he muttered hoarsely, "If I kill you all, there should be enough space in the backyard to bury you, right?" Unfortunately, Zui Guang thought this sentence was just average and simply pretended to be dead and did not respond to Wright's call. "Boss, I'm here with good wine and meat." Alas, strange. Where are the people? Hearing Teller's call, Wright put away the holy sword with a dark face and glared at them murderously. "Alright. That's it. All of you get out of here and go to the backyard. Today I will cook for you to eat barbecue. But if you spread what you saw today, then I promise that you will be roasted on the rack at the next party. Do you understand?" The Black Knights immediately stood up straight. "Yes, Your Highness. I won't tell you, even if you kill me." Emily laughed twice. She also knew that the joke just now was indeed a bit too much, so she nodded repeatedly. "Don't worry, I won't tell anyone." Wright was too lazy to talk to them anymore and drove them down himself. Teller saw everyone coming down and hurried over to greet them. "Hey, why did you go to the second floor? Why is this floor so messy?" Wright was so angry when he saw him and went up to him and hooked his neck. "Your sister has modified my house. Are you responsible for it?" "What? Boss, your house was modified by my sister? Is there such a thing? I don't know anything about it. She is too much. She actually took the opportunity to help you manage the mana to damage your house. I despise her." Bah. Teller patted his chest and said, "Boss, you know me. I can't afford to offend either you or my sister. Therefore, I have always remained absolutely neutral in your affairs. My sister also knows this, so she never asks me to do such things." Wright looked at him suspiciously. "Really? Why don't I believe it?" Taylor immediately put his hand on his heart. "I swear in the name of the goddess of light, I absolutely did not help my sister touch your house. Otherwise, I will be punished by God." Wright was moved and pounded his shoulder. "Good brother. Let's go and have a barbecue." "Great, we are in for a treat today." "Boss, I'll be honest. I haven't had much barbecue in the past 3 years since you left. All the chefs in this restaurant and that chefs are not as good as yours. This time I brought a lot of steaks and a collection of fine wines. Let's get drunk together. Of course, this is my hometown barbecue skill, which is absolutely unique in the world." Wright and Taylor were arm in arm, calling out to others, "Let's go. There is nothing that can't be solved by a barbecue. Today I will show you my skills. I guarantee that you will want 2 skewers after eating 1, and 3 skewers after eating 2. Wright led everyone to the backyard of the manor and found his special barbecue grill. Emily took a look and found that Wright's special grill was long and indeed different from the common barbecue grills. After preparing the rack, Wright took out a few fire element crystals, activated them and threw them into the grill as a fire source, and then began to prepare the barbecue sauce. Time is tight, and we didn't have time to marinate the meat, otherwise the effect would be better. While stirring the sauce, Wright hooked his chin at Taylor and said, "Tell the brothers to cut the meat and put it on the skewers." "Okay, boss." Taylor and his group are all paladins, so it's natural for them to do this job. The key is that for the Black Knight guards, it is absolutely a supreme honor to dine with the 2 apprentice holy sons. It is also an important help for their future promotion and advancement. The 2 princes don't even need to speak up. As long as the matter is revealed intentionally or unintentionally, someone will naturally know what to do. Miss Emily looked left and right and quietly approached Wright. "Well, what should I do?" "You? Why? I'm not the kind of noble who only pursues pleasure. I can still do the most basic housework. I also have a specialty." Wright raised his eyebrows. "Then you can cut some fruits or something to relieve your thirst. Usually, this is Lilith's job. Speaking of which, didn't you send a message to Lilith?" "She hasn't come yet. Nothing will happen, right?" Unexpectedly, Wright smiled. "Do you miss her?" "Wait and see." After that, Wright grabbed 2 skewers of meat and grilled them on the grill. Then he picked up the brush and applied a thick sauce. A refreshing meaty aroma immediately spread out, accompanied by a faint smoke rising straight up. In less than half a minute, a group of purple clouds in the sky came over after smelling the smell and landed on the ground and turned into a human form. It was Lilith, who had not been seen for many days. Okay, you guys don't call me for barbecue. Chapter 29. A good show. Smoke was faint and the aroma was wafting. Even the demons from hell could not resist this delicious barbecue. One string after another, chewing it was more delicious than a sinful soul. Lilith was like this, let alone others. The knights almost fought for food. Emily felt that her tongue was not her own while eating. How is it? My cooking skills are impeccable. If I, Wright, were not born, the barbecue world would be like a long night. Taylor cried while eating, and did not forget to complain to Wright. Boss, you left for 3 years. 3 years. Do you know how I spent these 3 years? It was not easy, but I finally made it. Wright raised his eyebrows and said nothing more. When he first came here, it was miserable. This world is basically a food desert, with almost no concept of seasoning, and barbecue is just putting steaks on the rack and sprinkling some salt. As a person from the paradise of food, Wright couldn't stand it after just 1 month. He had to do it himself to make enough food and clothing, and plant and make spices himself, so that he could survive. Moreover, during the 3 years of traveling, Wright has been constantly studying and perfecting herbal medicine, and has found many substitutes for familiar seasonings, and his barbecue skills have been improved. Lilith, come and give me a hand. Oh. Lilith floated over reluctantly, and her lower body turned into purple smoke, and coiled around Wright, with her chin resting on Wright's shoulder. She was just half a head taller than the grill, and it was impossible for her to help, unless the seal was lifted, and she returned to her normal body shape. She also knew that this was just an excuse for Wright to talk to her about something. So, without waiting for Wright to speak, she directly told him everything she had found out. I have figured out what you asked me to investigate. It is basically certain that the escaped ancestor level vampire was going after Jonah. The attack on the Pope's palace was just an excuse. The escaped vampire's pseudonym is Gilvis, and he is from the Scollett family. 3 years ago, he was just an earl, and then he was promoted to duke, prince, and all the way to the ancestor level. Half a year ago, he was captured and sent to the Iron Tower prison. During his imprisonment, he did not do anything unusual. Until half a month ago, he escaped from the Iron Tower by some unknown means. He avoided the detection of one formation after another, and arrived at the Pope's palace, as if no one was there, and attacked Jonah. Jonah is currently placed in the Pope's palace. There are a large number of holy artifacts and divine blessings placed around her. I was afraid that the coating would fail, so I didn't observe it closely. The body of the vampire has completely turned into ashes, and no useful clues have been left. Wright nodded, and he was basically certain in his heart that the mastermind behind this matter must be related to the Blood Witch. Even the true ancestors of the bloodline might not be able to achieve such a terrifying method that could allow a Count level vampire to be promoted to the original level in just 2.5 years. Moreover, this vampire's ability to escape from prison and avoid detection in the Holy Light Array is very similar to those dark races they met in the town of Lincheng Watchtower. At least it sounds similar. Wright flipped the skewers without raising his head, and the smoke covered his murderous eyes. Among the vampires, only the Brando family and the Scollett family have true ancestor level combat power. There may be power struggles and mutual frame-ups involved. However, they will all pay a price for this. With a squeak, the iron skewer with the meat skewer was bent. Wright took a look and handed it to Lilith on his shoulder without leaving a trace. Don't rub oil on my hair. There is other information. Do you want to hear it? There are other skewers of meat. Do you want to eat them? Lilith curled her lips. The Dark Tribe is no longer the biggest trouble in the Holy City. Do you know how many forces that make you upset I have seen these days? The remnants of the Church of Truth, spies from the Elf Empire, and the task force of the Free Territory, as well as various pagan revenge organizations that were directly or indirectly destroyed by the Church of Holy Light. But what you really should be careful about is Hearing Lilith's suspense, Wright sneered. It's Protestantism, right? It seems you know it very well. Wright put the grilled skewers of meat on the plate, picked up the fragrant wine, and drank it all. Whether they want revenge, subversion, or spying on secrets, they are actually targeting either the trunk or the fruit. But this new religion is aiming at the foundation of the big tree of the Holy See. I haven't talked to the goddess of holy light yet, so I can't be sure about the situation of this god of light. But in the monotheistic church, new religions are allowed to exist, and can even summon divine power. The severity of the problem has reached the point of life and death. Wright placed the empty wine glass on the table. It seems that a good show is about to be staged in this holy city. Lilith saw that he was unhappy, and her eyes rolled. In fact, there is another secret. You will be very happy to hear it. What news? I found the location of the Pope's treasury. A great achievement. Wright rubbed his hands and laughed sinisterly. He has been fleecing me for 3 years. I have to give him a good regards tomorrow morning. Hey, Emily, you have to go with me to see the Pope early tomorrow morning. Don't oversleep. Emily came over quickly with a tray of fruit. Really? Can I meet the legendary Pope? That's great. Don't be so excited, teacher. He may be quite different from your impression of the Pope. Speaking of the image of the Pope in the world's impression, Lilith picked up 2 pieces of fruit with both hands, stuffed one into Wright's mouth, and nibbled the other one in small bites. Maybe his old lover is more suitable. Jonah is not my old lover. Lilith immediately showed a sly smile. I didn't say the name just now. Some people think it's the right one. Wright rolled his eyes. What I mean is that Jonah does fit the stereotype of the Pope. Temperance, diligence, humility, tolerance, purity, and compassion. She began to assist the teacher in handling church affairs very early and has a deep understanding of the scriptures. By the standards of clergy, she is simply perfect and worthy of the name of holiness. Emily was amazed. How could such an excellent saint lady become a couple with you? Wright curled his lips. I have repeated it many times. We are not that kind of relationship. Her feelings for me are not love. It is a feeling of salvation, understand? In her eyes, I'm a heretic who has gone astray. Jonah felt that as a disciple of the same teacher, she had an obligation to save me and put me back on the right path. So she kept pestering me and stopped me from doing things that she thought were not in line with the doctrine. We often quarreled and made each other angry. Of course, she couldn't keep an eye on me, so I still caused various troubles every now and then and was imprisoned in the Iron Tower prison. Every time I went in, she would visit me, reprimand me for my reckless behavior, and bring me some food and daily necessities. There was one time, she was looking at me in the prison with a lunch basket, and suddenly said something. I understand. Ordinary methods can't save you at all. Only closer and deeper mutual integration is the way to salvation. What else to say? She standing on the shore can't save me in the water, so she wants to go to the sea of sinking with me until one day in the future we swim back to the shore together. She is ready to integrate into my life first, and then walk towards the light together. Emily covered her mouth with her hands and exclaimed, Lady Jonah. She is really, I'm crying. Why did you suddenly use honorifics? So what's your dissatisfaction? Didn't you hear it? She wants to be with me not out of love, but pity. I don't need her pity. Wright flipped the skewers unhappily. Ha. Look who saves who this time. Emily hesitated, as if thinking about something. Chapter 30. I didn't dare to spend any money. The barbecue party lasted until late, and everyone enjoyed it very much. After seeing off the guests, Wright packed up the things on the first floor by himself. This kind of thing should have been done by the maid, but for some reason, the Protestant girl named Flounder did not report. Wright secretly felt lucky that she did not come. Otherwise, if the other party saw this scene, it would take a lot of words to argue. There were more things to pack up on the second floor. Wright looked at the time and had to accept it tonight. As for Emily, who had no place to stay, Wright drove her to Lilith's room to spend the night. Lilith liked the scent of Emily's soul, so she was naturally very happy. Early the next morning, the two people and the demon all stayed in bed until the sun was high in the sky, and then they slowly got up. Without taking care of breakfast, the three of them washed up and got on the carriage to head towards the Pope's palace. It must be said that Wright's manor is in the center. The carriage did not go far before it arrived at the door of the palace. As soon as Wright came down, he saw a commotion at the door of the Red government office not far away. Curious, he was about to go over to take a look, but was stopped by a Pope's guard. "Your Highness, you can't get close to them. Do you know me?" The guard smiled awkwardly. "Your Highness, everyone in the Pope's guard knows you. In our first lesson, the instructor gave each of us a portrait of you." At this time, Emily and Lilith came over, and after hearing this, they covered their mouths and laughed. Wright coughed twice. Then, "Why did you stop me? What's going on over there?" "They are making open noise at the door of the Government Affairs Hall. Your Highness, you don't know. 5 or 6 groups of people suddenly came to the door of the Red Government Affairs Hall this morning. All of them came to register a new sect. Just register. As long as it is reasonable and legal, and does not violate the teachings of the Holy Light, they should be registered. But the name of their new sect is Synlight. And then they fought for this name." Wright smacked his lips and stopped talking for a moment, but the guards were still talking. After fighting for a while, the group of people stopped fighting. They said things like bonds, friendship, and that those who like Synlight are not bad people, and then they reconciled with each other. Reconciliation, isn't it good to reconcile? Then why are you arguing? It's about your status in the sect. The radicals think that you should be established as the founder, and the conservatives think that the radicals are too conservative, and that you should be established as a spiritual totem. Emily was confused. What's the difference? The guard side, the group that did this last time, was called the Protestants, and their spiritual symbol is the God of Light. The Red Templars certainly wouldn't agree, so they started arguing. Wright rubbed his cheek. "Come on, go in quickly, don't let that group of people see you." He quickly climbed the stairs, followed by Emily, and they went straight into the Pope's palace. Emily looked around and pulled the corner of Wright's clothes. "I thought that an audience with the Pope required notification. In theory, there is such a process. Then why do we? But I don't like procedures." Wright took the 2 of them and went straight to the Holy Light Library on the 2nd floor without staying in the lobby. He pushed the door open suddenly and immediately scared the white-bearded old man who was reading inside. "Right. Damn it. When will you learn to knock on the door? After you return the money to me, I may consider it." The white-bearded old man stood up and took out a faded crown from somewhere and put it on his head. "Don't talk about money with the Pope. I don't have any worldly desires anymore. I only want to serve the great goddess of light." Wright sighed. "Emily, let me introduce you to this money-loving old man in front of you. He is the current Pope of the Church of Holy Light, the Supreme Paul III. I'm very sure that the reason why he maintains his so-called piety to the goddess of light is because the portrait of the goddess of light is printed on the gold mark." Paul III completely ignored Wright and looked at Emily gently. "Miss Emily, right? The Knights of the Black Templar mentioned you to me." Emily bowed quickly and saluted. "The Duchy of St. Grant, the Lawrence family, Emily Lawrence, offer the most pious greetings to the great Pope. Your Holiness, hello." Okay. Oh my, it's gratifying that he is still so polite after being with this brat for so long. "Hey, brat, why can't you learn from that little girl? Don't be so clumsy. I really don't have any money here. This Pope never takes money seriously." Light said without even raising his head. Yes, you don't take money seriously, you take life. 3 years of dividends, you take 30% without doing anything. It's too unfair. Don't you feel guilty when you pray in the morning class every day? Give up at least a little. Ugh. Why don't you talk about your teacher Constant? He just sends a few recruits to watch the place and collect money every day, and he takes 70%. He doesn't feel guilty. Why should I feel guilty? Let me tell you, there is no money. Go find your teacher. Light sneered. Are you so sure that I can't find it? Teacher, for the sake of our relationship as master and apprentice, surrender and lose half. Don't call me teacher. I don't have a teacher like you. Pope Paul III was obviously a little panicked. There is no money. Go find one, if you have the ability. Lilith sighed, shrugged at the Pope, reached out and pressed the clock switch on the desk, and twisted the base of the magic lamp 3 times. Boom boom boom. Under the desperate gaze of the Pope, the south wall of the Guangming Library turned around, and it was hung with bags of gold marks. At a glance, there were at least hundreds of thousands of them. Here, this. Pope Paul III pointed at the wall of money, his fingers trembling. Who is this? Who put so much money in my vault? It's not me. It's not me. Wright rolled his eyes. Since it's not yours, I'll take it all away. This can be regarded as returning the property to its original owner. Just as he reached out to grab the purse, the old Pope flashed in front of him and grabbed his wrist tightly. Look, it's getting late now, and all the money is asleep. If you move, it might be bad if you wake them up. Teacher, does the goddess of holy light know that you are such a good liar? Anyway, you can't take it away. It's all mine. Mine. The Pope opened his arms to block the high wall. I didn't dare to spend a penny of so much money. When my teacher handed the holy see to me, there was not a single copper peso in the treasury. I was so poor. You don't know how expensive firewood and rice are until you run the household. Such a big holy see needs money everywhere. Today this needs to be repaired. Tomorrow that needs funding. And they all asked me for money, looking at me eagerly. I said that the holy see had no money, and the bunch of good for nothings in the temple clamored to increase the holy light tax. If that doesn't work, they will force the Holy Land to pay more tribute. In the end, it all falls on the heads of the believers. It's better for me to suffer than for the believers to suffer. Wright took 2 steps back helplessly. I didn't plan to take your money. I did this to make you a little more vigilant. If you want a share of the profits, just tell me directly. How can I not give it to you? A pope and a legendary paladin, they are dividing the profits without blinking their eyes. Even bandits are more professional than you in dividing the spoils. It's a simple matter to use the public account of the Holy See. But you have to deal with it privately, which will give people something to talk about. Don't think that the grandsons of the temple haven't said anything now. They are holding back, waiting to play them at the critical moment. By then, the Pope and the Paladin Order will be in cahoots with each other, embezzling huge sums of money. Do you know how big a mess it will cause? As long as you don't want the money, whatever you say is right. Wright covered his chest. None of them makes people worry free. Lilith, turn it off. Teacher, it's all closed. Don't block it. I'll clean up the accounts for you later. Now, take me to see Jonah. Chapter 31. Never let down. After making sure that Wright didn't want the money, the Pope added a few more restrictions to the Holy Light Library and then took them downstairs. After Jonah fell into a deep sleep, she was placed on the top floor of the Holy Tower in the Pope's palace, where there is the highest altar in the world, known as the place closest to God. The stairs are very long, and Wright took the opportunity to climb the tower to give his teacher a detailed report on the witch's intelligence. After hearing this, the Pope also sighed and looked at Emily with a look full of the care of an elder. Child, you have suffered. He looked at Wright again. According to what you said, it can be basically concluded that Jonah's child is also one of the 7 witches. I have a question about this. I didn't dare to ask Taylor, but you should know. Are Jonah and Taylor siblings? No. In fact, Jonah is an orphan. Her father is a comrade in arms with my and Taylor's father. Jonah's mother did die after giving birth to her, and when she was older, her father also died fighting for the church. Taylor's father adopted her until now. Wright sighed with some distress. Then it is basically confirmed. The Pope asked quickly, do you have any good ideas? Wright pondered for a moment. I have prepared 3 methods, divided into 3 strategies, upper, middle and lower. The best strategy is to find a way to figure out the operating mechanism of the witch's curse, and then dismantle it perfectly like defusing a bomb. Since it is a man-made thing, there is no reason why we can't crack it. What's more, we have a witch to help us. Right, Emily? Emily seemed to have something on her mind and did not respond to Wright. Wright didn't mind and continued to explain. The middle strategy is to ask the Holy Light Goddess for help in the name of the Holy See. It's not that she can save people, but just make sure that Jonah's soul can be saved in times of crisis. As long as the soul is saved, everything else is easy to deal with. What about the worst strategy? The worst strategy is to let the demon world prepare, and in an emergency, directly let Jonah ascend to a demon. In this way, the soul will mutate and reorganize, but the self-consciousness can be preserved. This method can be said to ensure that the curse is 100% free, so that no matter what curse it is, it will be invalidated due to the reorganization of the soul. But Jonah is so pious to the holy light. Letting her ascend to a demon and go to the demon world is even more painful than killing her. So, it can't be used unless it is absolutely necessary. Wright took a deep breath. Please rest assured, both the middle strategy and the worst strategy are just a bottom line. I will definitely implement the best strategy to the end. The Pope nodded affirmatively and pointed to the door at the end of the stairs. It's in front. As the door of the highest room in the holy tower was pushed open, a large bed with gauze curtains came into view. Behind the bed was an altar with holy water flowing and a huge statue of the goddess of light. The Pope patted Wright on the back and said, "Go see her." Wright did not speak, but his gradually quickening pace still exposed his inner thoughts. Behind the layers of veils, a beautiful girl lay there quietly. Her silver white hair was still so smooth, and her delicate face was still so beautiful. Wright put his hand on Jonah's wrist and looked at her quietly. Her vital signs were stable, her face was ruddy, and her skin was shiny. She really seemed to be asleep, waiting for her beloved to kiss her awake. But Wright knew that, if he woke her up rashly without understanding the specific mechanism of the witch's curse, he would not save her, but put her in a more dangerous situation. "You said you can't run away when you can't fight. How can you be so rigid and not flexible when it comes to life and death? You always scold me, saying this is not allowed, that is not allowed. Are you obedient now? By the way, the matter of secretly renovating my house is not over yet. When I finish everything, you must write a self-criticism for me. It should be more than 800 words, not including punctuation marks, and the subject matter is not limited except for poetry and prose. In addition, I originally prepared a gift for you. I will give it to you when you wake up." Wright stood there and looked for a while, then turned around and walked back. As a result, when he came to the Pope, he found that someone was missing. "Where's Emily?" Lilith pointed outside the door. She said she was a little uncomfortable just now, so she went out for some fresh air. I also want her to help sense and see if there is any new discovery. Wait a minute, I will go find her. Wright walked quickly to the door and saw Emily sitting on the steps sobbing. "Emily, what's wrong with you?" Wright sat next to her. "Why are you crying?" Emily wiped her eyes. "Nothing. I just missed my mother." Wright immediately understood that it was probably because he had just talked to the Pope about Jonah's life experience that Emily missed her. For a moment, Wright didn't know how to persuade him. "Wright, you must not let Jonah down, understand? Do you know? Jonah, she may have known about the witch's curse before." "Wait. Slow down, I can't keep up with you. How did you know?" Emily punched Wright angrily. "Why are you men so stupid in this regard?" Looking at Wright with a confused look on her face, Emily lowered her head and her voice was a little hoarse. "I have never seen my mother. I only have a half-knitted blanket, which is very warm and comfortable. My father said that it was knitted by my mother. I loved to cry when I was a child, but as long as the blanket is placed next to me, I will calm down soon. My mother is a real noble lady, but in order to finish the blanket by herself, she specially learned from the maid from scratch." At this point, Emily's voice was a little choked, and she calmed down a little. "I also recently learned about the witch's curse, and then I figured out some things. I think that, although my mother didn't know about the curse, she must have noticed something. That's why she dragged her increasingly weak body to learn knitting, just to leave something for me." Wright looked at the sad Emily and felt that his mind suddenly became blank. Emily took a deep breath and said faintly, "I think Miss Jonah must have known about the witch. That's why she prepared 4 cribs. Just like the Knight Commander said, she hopes she can give birth to quadruplets for you, because she may only have that one chance. She knows that she will not be able to accompany you in the future, so she prepared all the clothes for the children from childhood to adulthood. She knows her ending, so she wants to do something she wants to do before the end. For example, a grand wedding, such as a warm wedding room. I don't know what kind of mood she was in when she prepared these things. At least, in the new Lywood portrait, she smiled happily, and she hopes you are happy as well. Right, she doesn't want to be with you for some kind of redemption. She really likes you so much that she wants to marry you. Right, love is something that the witch can give with all her heart. Don't let her down, okay? Wright sat there woodenly, unable to come back to his senses for a long time. He reached out blankly, but found nothing to hold on to. After a long time, he slowly stood up and walked towards the big bed in the middle of the room without saying a word. Looking at that familiar face again, what Wright thought in his heart was completely different. He reached out and stroked Jonah's cheek, then walked around to the front of the altar, gathered the holy light, and injected it into the holy water. The Pope was worried about him and had been following him. Seeing him start the altar, he was shocked. Right. What are you doing? He was about to step forward, but was blocked by Lilith. Lilith, get out of the way. I'm afraid he will do something stupid. Don't worry, teacher. Wright didn't look back, but his tone was clear and firm. I know what I'm doing, and I know what I should do. As the holy water completely turned into gold, a beam of light shot out from the holy tower and went straight to the sky. In the holy white light, the statue of the goddess of holy light came to life. She looked at Wright in front of the altar, surprised. Oh, you actually took the initiative to summon me to come? Afra, is the deal you proposed 3 years ago still valid? The goddess of light suddenly became excited. Of course, you finally figured it out? Wright nodded solemnly. I agree to your deal, but the reward needs to be changed. Please read it. Please. This is really important to me. Chapter 32. You can never have too many backup plans. In front of the altar, Wright looked at Afra, the goddess of light. Interesting. Then let me hear it. What kind of reward do you want? The God's Covenant. Wright said, pointing to Jonah lying on the bed behind him. Give it to her. Afra narrowed her eyes, and her divine power rippled. Do you know what you are talking about? You really dare to ask for it? The God's Covenant is a divine treasure that can make people ascend to godhood in one step. The Pope has prayed to me about Jonah's matter. She is my most beloved believer, and I have already reserved a place for her in the Hall of Heroes. However, since you have spoken, how about this, demigod? I can let her ascend to the demigod realm directly, and as long as she continues to work hard in the future, she can also forge her own godhood. Besides, you are just trying to save her soul, right? Demigod is enough. Just now, it was, but not now. The God's Covenant, no bargaining price. Don't be so arrogant. Now you are begging me. I can also beg other gods, but you probably don't want such a result. So, you are begging me, and I'm begging you. Afra gritted her silver teeth, but she had to admit in her heart that it was true. Although Wright is a clergyman of the Holy Light Church in name, he is not under her control at all. Moreover, he has the ability to torment the Holy Light Church half to death at any time, or even destroy it in one fell swoop. If she lets him make deals with other gods of unknown origin, she may very likely change from a potential partner to a victimized third party. Afra weighed it over and over again, and finally sighed helplessly. Okay, the reward can be the God's Covenant. But, it has to be increased. In addition to the crown of the scorching sun king of the elves, you have to bring me the gaze of the sea god Brosti. Wright frowned slightly. I remember that 3 years ago you only needed an extra light divinity to be promoted. Why are you going backwards now? This question seemed to touch the sore spot of the goddess of holy light. Afra waved her fist in indignation. Because I was plotted against. An evil god, through some unknown channel, released his clone into this world. It devoured part of my divinity and took away part of my authority, causing my divinity to decline instead of rise. But its clone was unable to escape and was trapped in this world by me. It is only a matter of time to take back the stolen divinity. I didn't expect the other party to be so shameless that he actually called himself the God of Light and wanted to further devour me by dividing my believers. Humph. When I succeed in my promotion, I will be the first to crush him to death. Wright raised his eyebrows. What is the specific channel? I don't know. This evil god's clone often secretly consumes a lot of my holy light. It's outrageous. Ahem. Let's talk about the transaction. I have to get the God's Covenant first. Moreover, the matter of collecting divinity has to wait until I finish dealing with the affairs in the holy city. Aloud. After all, you and I have the same interests in the affairs of the holy city. As she spoke, the goddess of holy light took out a divine essence crystal, painted mysterious symbols on it with her own golden blood, and made it into the God's covenant that the world dreams of. Anyone who possesses it is equivalent to being sent to the realm of gods. Although it is only the lowest level, it is at least a god. The goddess of holy light threw it forward, and the covenant of God fell into Light's hands. Don't forget your promise. Wait a minute. Seeing that the goddess of holy light was about to leave, Light hurriedly called her. Your altar is very useful. I want to borrow it for a while. Borrow? What do you want to do? I want to talk to some demons in the demon world about something. Don't even think about it. No. Using my sacrificial altar to connect to the demon world? No way. This is blasphemy. It's arrogant. I really need it urgently. Thank you. Light didn't wait for the goddess of holy light to finish speaking, and cut off the holy prayer ceremony with a click. Pope Paul III was so scared that he grabbed his hair. You little brat. Do you know what the consequences of doing this are? It's over. I'm going to listen to the goddess scolding you again, and this time it will probably take more than 3 prayer hours. Lilith, go and bring Emily back to the room. Okay. Lilith flew out quickly. After the two came back together, Wright gathered the holy light in one hand and waved it in the air, then suddenly opened a huge magic circle barrier, covering the entire room. Next, he had to summon the demons from various prisons in the demon world, and he couldn't let their breath emanate from here. Otherwise, the entire holy city would be in turmoil again. After setting up the barrier, Wright came to the altar again and cut his palm. Blood dripped into the altar, and soon dyed the holy water blood red. Then the water in the altar seemed to boil and began to surge wildly. Wright ignored all this. He returned to Jonah and placed the covenant of God on her forehead. With a burst of milky white light, the God's covenant sank into her body, leaving only a golden holy pattern the size of a fingernail between her eyebrows. This is the first guarantee. At this time, boiling blood continued to splash out from the altar, and then gathered into pieces nearby. Under the gaze of the Pope and Lilith, one after another terrifying and strange demons emerged from it, kneeling on one knee to salute Wright devoutly. Wright turned his back to them, did not speak, and did not turn back. Those demon phantoms all kept kneeling on one knee, not daring to move. No one would have thought that in front of the altar of the Holy Light Church, the holy tower of the Pope's palace, which is known as the closest place to God, there were 13 demons from the demon world kneeling. The Pope was calm, but Emily was only a 5th level magician, and it was obvious that she could not withstand the magic power of so many demon phantoms. Fortunately, Lilith held her hand and calmed her down. Are these demon gods all servants of His Highness Light? Lilith shook her head. No, they are Light's fanatical followers. Oh, is it the Mutual Aid Society you mentioned? No, they are from another organization called the Greeters. They believe from the bottom of their hearts that Light is the future co-lord of the demon world, and the meaning of their existence is to one day welcome the return of the demon lord and rule the demon world. Look at the 13 of them. Don't they all have the same pattern on their shoulders? That is Light's symbol in the demon world. Emily endured the pain in her eyes and looked at them. Really, there is, but the pattern feels weird. It's weird because they only tattooed half of it. They dare not tattoo it all, for fear that they can't bear it. I see. Lilith licked her lips. Don't look at them being so humble now and behaving so strangely. They are all demon kings who control one side of the demon world. Then, His Highness Light, call them. Light, who had been silent, suddenly spoke. His voice was low and hoarse, but extremely clear. Perform 13 sacrifices. Build a 13-tier tower. Carve 13 forbidden formations. Make 13 secret words. Use blood amber to pave the way. Apply the powdered medicine. Play the Devil's Song of Decadence. Sing the Supreme Hymn. After hearing this, the 13 demons trembled with ecstasy, and Lilith tightly grasped Emily's hand. Hiss. Sorry, I'm too excited. What did you mean by that just now? Lilith licked her lips. 13 represents misfortune in your world, but in the demon world, it is the most worthwhile suffering. Wright summoned the demons from 13 realms of hell, purgatory, sin prison, demon prison, etc., and asked them to prepare a highest standard demon ascension ceremony together. The head of the 13 demons was so excited that tears filled his eyes. Oh, My great lord of 10,000 demons, have you finally decided to come to your loyal demon world? See. Wright looked at Jonah's sleeping face, his voice soft but firm. If necessary, I will go to the demon world with her. Your most loyal follower assures you that we will never let you down. Wright nodded slightly and waved his hand with a lack of interest. Yes, I'll take my leave. The shadows of the 13 demons dissipated one after another, and the holy water in the altar became clear again. This is the second line of defense. The Pope sighed. That's enough. Light. Hey. What are you going to do? Put down the magic scroll. Light tore the scroll apart, and the breath of death instantly filled the room. The backup plan for the emergency plan also needs a backup plan. Chapter 33, Token of Death. In the thick grey fog, a human figure gradually emerged. He was wearing a grey cloak, holding a chain and a sickle in his hands. There was nothing in the hood, but it seemed to be watching everything in the world. If you accidentally look at it, just one glance will make your soul fall into it. However, after the death god appeared, he ignored Wright, but turned his head to Emily and Jonah. The witch's curse was a blasphemy against the law of death, and their too rich and mellow souls were the favorite cakes of the god of death. Being watched by the god of death was not a good thing, and the god's covenant in Jonah's body immediately responded. The thin god's force field wrapped her up, completely blocking the eyes of the god of death. And Emily smelled the smell of death for the first time in her life, but fortunately Lilith and the Pope stood in front of her. Otherwise, just standing here might be dragged into the sea of the underworld by the will of death. Wright frowned slightly and took a step forward. A holy light shot out from under his feet and hit the ground in the grey fog of the god of death. The latter's body shook for a while, and he immediately raised his sickle. When he saw the person in front of him clearly, he angrily slammed the sickle on the ground. The muttering of the dead came from under the hood, vague and hoarse. The harder I listened, the more I couldn't hear it. But I could still tell that the god of death was a little unhappy. Wright spoke, and it was also the muttering of the dead. It's hard to imagine why a living being can make such a sound. Although they didn't know what the two sides talked about, the two men and the demon saw the hood nodded slightly, then stretched out his bony hand and pointed at Wright. Oh, are you sure? Perhaps he was a little surprised. Wright subconsciously didn't use the death language. Unexpectedly, the god of death nodded slightly, and his fingers tapped heavily again. Wright thought for a while, pulled off the first button of his collar, and threw it to the god of death. After receiving it, the latter withdrew his arm with satisfaction, and his figure dissipated with the grey mist. After the death aura had completely dissipated, the Pope and others hurried over. You little brat. It's okay to make a deal with the devil. How dare you mess with the god of death? Do you realize the seriousness of the problem? Fair trade, reasonable buying and selling. What's so serious about that? To be honest, the god of death is definitely the one who abides by the rules the most. Lilith circled around Wright and asked nervously, what deal did you make with him? It's also a guarantee. Even if the witch's curse can withstand the summons of the holy mountain and the 13 realms of the demon realm, I really don't believe it can resist the will of death from the underworld. Emily finally recovered from the shock just now. But didn't you sign your soul to the demon god of the demon realm? Then what did you use to make the deal? Why does the god of death want your buttons? When it comes to this, Wright scratched his head helplessly. I thought I could do the same as the goddess of holy light, using the bargaining chip to help the other party recover the death divinity left in this world. Unexpectedly, the other party only asked for a promise from me. After that, Wright pointed to his collar. Look, if all the buttons on the shirt are buttoned, where is the first button? Probably in the throat. Yes, this is a human's Achilles heel, and it's also where the sound comes from. So the first button of the shirt is one of the most effective tokens for the god of death. A pocket watch in the left inner pocket is also fine, because that position is right above the heart, and the clock also symbolizes the passage of time. This kind of token generally means that the promised thing is time limited. What about the button? If the token is a button, then I can only wait until one day, when someone shows up in front of me with a button. Then I must do my best to fulfill the other party's request. Seeing the three worried faces, Wright smiled and said, don't be like that. I've said that the god of death is the most rule abiding. There's no need to worry that the other party will ask for too much or deliberately embarrass me. In fact, this is much simpler than helping him find the divinity of death. I'm just more surprised. What on earth does he want my help with that is more tempting than divinity? The Pope twisted his beard and said calmly, "Why do you think so much, a debtor?" Lilith was speechless. I know who Wright learned the habit of owing debts everywhere from. Hey, you devil, don't accuse the Pope of innocence out of thin air. He had this skill before he became my disciple. Wright clapped his hands. Okay, let's go. There is still a lot of work to do. The Pope nodded. Yes, there is still a lot of work to do. The altar here is probably going to be demolished and rebuilt. After all, the demon has been summoned, and the goddess will definitely not want to use it again. Oh, this is all money. It really costs my life. If you are not allowed to use it, then don't use it. Do you know that during the holy ceremony, labor and material prices are very expensive? As the Pope muttered, they walked towards the door. When they were about to reach the door, Wright suddenly turned around and walked back to the bed quickly. The others didn't say much when they saw this scene, but just stood at the door and waited quietly. Standing in front of the bed again, Wright reached out and lifted the bed curtain. Well, I have cleaned up the place on the first floor. I didn't think too much about it at the time. When you wake up, I will compensate you with a new one. I have also put away the portrait. It has been 3 years. I'm much more handsome than the portrait. When you wake up, I will make you a magic camera so that you can take pictures in sets. I didn't move the crib, but quadruplets are too exaggerated. It is not easy to realize, and it will cause great damage to the body. I think it is better to let nature take its course. Anyway, have a good rest, and leave the rest to me. Putting down the veil, Wright turned and left. His steps became extremely firm. They walked down the stairs, and Lilith shouted that she was too tired and possessed Wright. In fact, she just wanted to have a secret chat with Wright. Have you figured it out? What's going on with that god of light? Humph, an evil god who came from nowhere discovered the back door left in the faith structure of the holy light goddess, let a clone in to eat and drink, and wanted to take it away. After such a big fuss, even if a frau is stupid, she can still notice it, and directly lock the opponent's clone inside. Unexpectedly, the opponent is also a ruthless person, using his face on the ground as a butt. After finding that he couldn't get out, he turned around and claimed to be the god of light. He changed his job from a thief to a robber, preparing to swallow up the holy light goddess and occupy the magpie's nest. I can only say that he might be a habitual offender. However, this evil god doesn't take bean buns as dry food. Although Afra's character is not very good, she still has strength. What's more, this is a local battle. The holy light goddess has been deeply rooted here for hundreds of years. How could she be overthrown by a small clone of an external evil god? Of course, Afra didn't dare to act too hastily. After all, if the pressure was too tight, if the god of light was to fight to the death, she would be a pure loss. But the result will not change. It is only a matter of time before the god of light is destroyed. The final result is that the evil god will lose more than he gains, and will also give away a small part of Afra's divinity for free. Lilith suddenly realized, no wonder. I was wondering why Afra didn't let you destroy the new religion. Haha, it turns out that she thinks she will win and doesn't want to waste the opportunity to let you do things for her. Wright grinned. Winning may not be certain. I'm also quite interested in this god of light. Chapter 34. Who is the evil god? Lilith suddenly had an ominous premonition in her heart. Hey, are you up to something again? No, I'm just planning to upgrade my private server. Wright rubbed his fingers. We can't let Afra kill this evil god's clone. Otherwise she will definitely free up her hands to conduct a comprehensive inspection, and then the back door left behind will inevitably be discovered. But as the evil god's clone, the god of light always has hidden dangers. Therefore, the best way to deal with it is to turn the god of light into my puppet god and let it become the built-in of my private server, hanging on the side of the holy light goddess. In this way, my private server can have almost the same authority as the holy light goddess herself, and all the blame will be put on the head of the evil god. Lilith clapped her hands. I understand. Isn't this the channel server you often talked about before? That's right. And I don't have to pay the channel agency fee to the Holy Light Goddess, because the legal person is that evil god. Although we are enemies, I actually sympathize with Aphra. But soon, Lilith reacted. That's not right. It's the evil god's deity after all. You said you can just turn it into a puppet? I had no choice but to ask him to develop a new religion. There is no one-way street between believers and gods. Wright smiled sinisterly. Life tips. Faith is risky, and preaching should be cautious. Lilith said faintly. Constrain your expression, otherwise you won't be able to tell who is the evil god. While the two were talking in secret, the group had returned to the ground. Under the holy tower, the old pope beat his back. His body was a little hunched. Seeing this, Wright hurried forward and used the holy healing technique to help the pope relieve the discomfort in his waist and back. Your control has improved compared to before. Not bad. The pope grabbed Light's wrist. No need, I know my own body, and I have long developed tolerance to these methods. No matter how magical the holy light is, it cannot go against common sense. This is the first lesson I taught you. Have you forgotten? I heard that you were not in good health before I came. Don't work too hard. Let others handle the holy ceremony. I'll be watching, and nothing will go wrong. The pope nodded repeatedly. Although he said he disliked his disciple, he still trusted him in his heart. What do you think of the current situation in the holy city? It's complicated, but there are only 4 groups that can really cause trouble. Pagans, the remnants of the truth, the dark race, and the Protestants. Light paused and continued. Among them, the pagans have the most diverse origins and the largest number, but they are just a mob, and are the easiest to deal with. The remnants of the Truth Party are all talented people with amazing destructive power. But there are too few of them, and even if they are killed one by one, it won't take much time and energy. I will give priority to dealing with these 2 groups. The Protestantism is of a special nature, and has a complicated relationship. It is difficult to completely eradicate it in a short period of time, and it will be very undignified if you are not careful. But don't worry, I have a way to make them harmless temporarily. At least, they can last until the end of the Holy Advent ceremony. The real enemy of this ceremony is the dark race that has the ability to resist the power of holy light. Fortunately, I already have a plan to deal with it. The old pope smiled with relief. Okay. From now on, it will be the stage for you young people. The affairs of the holy city will be handed over to you. By the way, this is for you. I know you don't like procedures, and it can help you save a lot of trouble. Wright took it in his hand, and saw that it was the Holy Man medal. The cross star engraved on it symbolizes the absolute authority second only to the Pope. This is the medal used by the apprentice saint son and apprentice saint daughter when they are on duty at the Pope's palace. You skipped 3 years of work, so now you can make up for it. Wright put it in his arms. Then remember to give me the subsidy and allowance. Ah. What? Speak louder. I can't hear you clearly. People are they can't refuse to accept their age. The Pope muttered, while fleeing the scene at a speed that an old man could not have, leaving Wright speechless. Lilith released the possession and asked with a smile. Don't look, it ran away long ago. Where are we going next? The Black Iron Prison of the Inquisition. I want to see the cell of the vampire ancestor. Maybe I can find some clues. By the way, pick a few capable assistants. Emily suddenly realized, you are looking for Knight Commander Kelst and others? Wright did not respond, and took them out of the Pope's palace. When they left the palace gate, they saw that the group of people who quarreled in the Red Government Hall in the morning had left. Wright was very curious, and found the guard again. What about the people from the Synlight faction? Why did they all leave? How was it dealt with in the end? Your Highness, you really care about them? That's not the case. The guard's expression was also strange. Maybe it's because they quarreled too much, and they were afraid that they would leave a bad impression on other pilgrims. The Cardinal came in person and promised to give them special approval. Can this be approved? They have spiritual totems other than the goddess. The Archbishop said it's okay, as long as they don't write this into the faction doctrine. The guard spread his hands. After all, your Mahayana Holy Light faction and Uruto Raman faction are basically the same. In the past 3 years, these 2 factions have not had any major problems. But unexpectedly, the people from the Synlight faction had problems when compiling the faction doctrine. What can be wrong with the doctrine? They said that according to the spirit of Sunlight, they should not seek official certification, which is to go along with the flow. They want to become official supervisors and sanctioners instead. Then they reached a consensus and just turned around and left. The guard looked at the entrance of the government hall and said with some distress. After they left, the archbishop stood at the entrance for a long time. Wright covered his face and said, "It's over. It has become an exiled sect." Emily was very curious. "What is an exiled sect?" The guard answered very considerately, "It's a nice name for a heretical sect." Lilith patted Wright on the shoulder. "Forget it. This one doesn't matter." Just when Wright was tired, suddenly a familiar voice came from a distance. "Boss. Boss. Taylor?" Wright looked back and saw Taylor standing at the bottom of the stairs, followed by a group of girls. One of them was a blonde girl in a maid outfit who looked very familiar. "Luckily you haven't left yet." Taylor walked up quickly with a few girls. "Boss, this woman went to the paladin camp to find you. She said she lost the bet to be your maid, but couldn't find your house. Do you know her?" "I know her." Phoebus. "No, Fu is not convinced. Why did you come to me now?" "It's Flando." The blonde maid stomped her feet in anger. "You didn't give me the address at that time." Wright sighed. "The world is really fickle. 3 years ago, who in the holy city didn't know where I lived? What about these few?" Flando protected everyone behind her. "These are all my best friends. They came to see me off. Sisterly love. But I feel like they are more like running to laugh at you. You. Stop talking nonsense." Wright put his hands behind his back and looked arrogant. "As a maid, how can you talk to your master like this? As a clergyman, how can you talk to an apprentice saint like this?" Flando gritted her teeth, but finally bowed. "I'm sorry, master." Taylor came forward and said, "Boss, please train the servants later. I have a difficult matter to ask you for help. We are brothers. Why should we be polite? Just say it directly." Taylor sighed and said, "Adros has been devastated by the prison break of the vampire ancestor. He locked himself up in the lowest level of the Black Iron prison and no one can persuade him to come out. You see." The girls next to him suddenly screamed, "Adros. Lord Saint Adros." Wright looked at the girls. "Why, do you know him?" "Of course. The noble son of Holy Light. The flawless sword. The most perfect man." Wright looked at Taylor. "It seems that this kid has been doing well in the past 3 years. It just so happens that I'm going to visit the Black Iron prison and take a look at what is going on. Since you are here, come with me. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 35. You call this a normal attack? As one of the 5 apprentice saints, Wright certainly knew Adros. His mother was born into a noble family, and his father was a senior member of the Black Temple. He was also very outstanding, and his performance had always been perfect. Moreover, he was good at communication, and had a great talent for diplomacy. At a young age, he was a guest of honor in many holy empires. The nickname of the noble son of the Holy Light was quite fitting. Everyone thought that he would definitely join the Red Temple and shine, or become the backbone of the White Temple, using his charm and talent to carry forward the Holy Light. But no one expected that he would decide to go to the Black Temple for training. But Wright didn't seem surprised at all about this result. That kid admired his father very much, so he went to the Black Temple, probably to inherit his father's legacy. Wright chatted with the people around him as he walked. After hearing what he said, the little girls who followed him suddenly realized. Flando's girlfriends seemed to regard this noble son of Holy Light as an idol. When they heard that Wright and his friends were going to see him, they all came up to him and begged him to take them with him. Wright naturally didn't mind. After all, in his opinion, it was just an ordinary meeting with someone, no big deal. Taylor, however, hesitated to speak, as if he had expected something, but it was difficult to say it out loud. The Inquisition was not too far from the Pope's palace. When they were almost there, Taylor grabbed Wright. "Boss, how about I go over and let them know?" "No need." Wright showed his holy man metal. "I have this, and it will be smooth all the way." Even if 3 years have passed, and the people in the Inquisition don't recognize me, they should at least recognize this thing, right? Boss, you worry too much. How could they not recognize you? Oh. Boss, slow down. Wright led his people straight to the Inquisition, and the soldiers on the high tower spotted them early. It was not because the soldiers had good eyesight, but mainly because they were too conspicuous. Although the Inquisition was located in the core of the Holy City, the surrounding area was basically empty and no one was around. It's not that they set up a no-go zone, but because of his notorious reputation, no one wants to get close to this place. Even birds want to take a detour when flying by. There are so many people in Wright's group, most of whom are girls dressed in bright clothes and chattering, which is too obvious. But what happened next was very strange. Ding ding ding. 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 The big bell on the tower of the Court of Justice rang wildly. The 4 guards stationed at the door turned around and ran into the yard, as if they were facing a great enemy, slammed the door, and raised the magic circle. The Court of Justice was even more dusty and shouting, and it sounded like a mess. This was the first time the girls had seen such a scene. Emily couldn't help but ask, what happened? Did another criminal escape from prison? Taylor sighed and said dimly, no, if a criminal escapes from prison, the bell will ring 3 times. If someone robs the prison, the bell will ring 5 times. If there is a major accident, the bell will ring 7 times. If there is an emergency, the bell will ring 9 times. The highest alert is 13 times, which will only occur when the Holy City encounters a devastating disaster. Then, what does the continuous ringing mean? The holy evil is coming. In an instant, the girl's eyes fell on Wright's back. Wright turned around and smiled awkwardly. Ahem. Well, I said they were celebrating, because they were too happy. Do you believe me? Lilith patted his shoulder. Just fool others, don't fool yourself. Maybe they discovered your true identity. Would you rather doubt your coating level than doubt your reputation? Let me tell you, when I came to the Holy City in advance, I had been to the trial chamber several times. I'm going to peel off the membrane on you now, and then I'll send you in. Come on. Come on. A crisp sound interrupted the quarrel between the two. Everyone looked up at the trial chamber, but found that the bells had stopped ringing. See? It's not stopping. It's not as mysterious as you said. No, boss, I think they broke the clock. Taylor. Come here, I have a gift for you. Well, thank you very much, your highnesses, for taking us to visit the gate of the Court of Inquisition. Flando's girlfriend said as they stepped back. Well, we suddenly remembered that something happened at home, so we won't disturb your highness. Flando, take care of yourself. We are leaving first. Bye. After the girls finished speaking, they ran back in a panic and disappeared around the corner in a blink of an eye. Seeing this, Taylor was disdainful. These girls are too bad at lying. Something happened at home? We can't even get a leave note for such an excuse in our Paladin Academy. They are obviously scared, and they refuse to admit it, don't you think, boss? Taylor. Come here, I have a gift for you. Taylor scratched his head. Boss, I seem to have heard this just now. Is it an illusion? Wright rubbed his temple, and led the rest of the group to the door of the court. Open the door. It's me, Light. A panicked voice came from inside the door. Your Highness Light. Today is the day when the Inquisition is not open to the public. Please go back. What the hell? Open the door. Let me tell you, I have the order of the Holy Man. Don't you even listen to the Pope's orders? Your Highness, calm down. It's just that we dare not receive someone of your status in private. The black-robed Archbishop Cardivan is on his way on horseback. Please wait a little longer. Wait a little longer. Seeing this, Flando couldn't help but muttered, the status of the Archbishop is second only to the Pope. Even if the Pope comes in person, there is no need to ask the Archbishop to come and receive him, right? Are these people in the Inquisition delaying time and trying to hide something? Lilith next to him sneered twice. No, they are simply afraid. If there is any organization in the Holy City that is most afraid of this honorable Holy Sinturbid Light, it must be the Inquisition. Due to their dereliction of duty, Jonah was attacked. Compared with the punishment of the Holy Light Church, they are more afraid of facing Light's monstrous anger. When I came to gather intelligence several times before, the people in the Inquisition looked as if they had lost all hope in life. They called the black-robed Archbishop, probably hoping that the Archbishop could stop them and not let them die too miserably. Wright's voice suddenly turned cold. Open the door, or there's no need to open the door. Your Highness, please wait a moment. The Archbishop. Wright took 2 steps back and stretched out his hand to summon the holy sword Synlight. Then he raised his other hand, and holy healing spell changed fell on his body, greatly enhancing his physical fitness. He raised the holy sword and slashed at the door of the Inquisition. With a click, the door and the defensive magic circle were cut off together, and a deep gully was left on the stone road behind the door. Such a swift attack shocked everyone directly, and Emily couldn't help but exclaimed, Didn't you say that, in order to make the holy sword unleash its power, you have to say some nice words and pose? This is not the power of the holy sword, it's my power. Even if Synlight is passive, it is at least an ordinary holy weapon that can cut through iron like mud. Even if you can't use skills, you can still do a simple attack. Looking at the 1 meter thick magic alloy iron door and the gradually collapsing multi-layered defense array, Emily and Flander looked at Wright as if he were a monster. You call this a simple attack? Chapter 36, The Light of the Black Cultists. When Wright led his men into the gate of the Inquisition, all the clergy stood straight wherever he looked. The Knight Commander Celts, who used to be familiar with them, also hurried over with his men and bowed. Greetings to His Highness Wright, and to His Highness Taylor. Your Inquisition is great. Wright shook the holy man badge in his hand. You don't even take the Pope seriously? What do you mean? Do you want to go it alone? No, we are just... The Knight Commander turned pale with fear, and the other clergy were pale and shaky. Flando looked at these black-clad church members who were once ferocious and all heretics were afraid of them, but now they have become so timid and pitiful. For a moment, her mind was a little confused. Emily was exposed to these things earlier than her, and her emotions were already very stable. Okay, I'm not here to accuse you today. When Jonah wakes up, she will come to settle accounts with you about her affairs. Tell Archbishop Cardwin not to rush over. I'm just here to take a look today to see if I can find some new evidence. By the way, let me meet your holy light noble, the flawless sword. Okay, my lord. I'll lead the way for you. Please come this way. Celt took the initiative to take on the reception task. The vampire ancestor was imprisoned on the 3rd underground floor at that time. His cell has not been moved and is well protected. His Highness Adros is on the 7th underground floor. Your Highness Light, it's great that you can come to persuade him. In fact, it's not His Highness Adros' fault that the prisoner escaped, but he has been blaming himself for not coming out for so long. Light waved his hand impatiently. Not necessarily. I may be here to rub salt into his wounds. Maybe I'll have to grab a handful of cumin. The Knight Commander smiled awkwardly and did not respond. He led everyone towards the most famous black iron prison in the Inquisition. The structure of this prison is an inverted iron tower, buried deep underground. The deeper you go, the more ferocious the prisoners are, and the more serious their crimes are. Wright has lived in every floor of the black iron prison, and he is also a frequent visitor to the deepest 9th floor. Although it was the Knight Commander who led the way, Wright could walk back and forth in this place with his eyes closed. When he stepped onto the 3rd floor of the Iron Tower again, the entire cell on the 1st floor suddenly became a commotion. The prisoners seemed to have sensed something, and they all stopped what they were doing and stood behind the fence in an orderly manner. With their legs apart, their hands behind their backs, they bent forward 30 degrees and lowered their heads. Taylor, Lilith, and the Knight Commander all looked as if it was natural, but Flander and Emily, who saw this scene for the first time, were scared to death. Especially Flander. Although she had only been in the Holy City for more than 2 years, she had already experienced the horror of the Inquisition and the horror of the Black Iron Prison. But those Black Iron prisoners who made people shudder at the mention of them were now so humble and even a little well behaved. Flander really wanted to ask them, are you really the most vicious prisoners? Are you the lawless criminals? Wright didn't have time to take care of their feelings, but quickly came to the protected cell. Is this it? Yes, Your Highness. Wright nodded slightly, and then formed a rectangle with the index fingers and thumbs of both hands, and then urged the holy light. The small rectangle of light flew out and suddenly became larger, and then scanned the entire cell. TSK, all the arrays are perfect, without loopholes or damage. It seems that the vampire really blocked the detection of the holy light array. There is no attribute conflict. This is just an ordinary iron cage. Even the ancestor level blood descendants can break it with a sneeze. Wright curled his lips. The technology needs to be iterated. At least we can't rely solely on the holy light array like before. Reconstruct it. Taylor shook his head. Boss, don't think about it. His Holiness the Pope will not approve the funds. That's right. Then I'd better wait for the Black Cardinal to beg me. Wright waved behind him. Emily. Emily suddenly had an idea and walked into the cell quickly. After she turned around, she walked out with a somewhat ugly face. Yes. Are there many? Very light. Is it still her? Yes. Thank you for your hard work. Looking at the empty cell, Wright was thoughtful. The situation was similar to what he judged. It was indeed the Blood Witch who was making trouble. The other party's target was very clear. That is, Jonah, who was also a witch. However, it is still unclear what the other party's ultimate goal is. Do they want to seize the power of the witch? Then this kind of suicide attack that has no return. Even if Jonah is really killed, how can the magic power be recovered? Or do they want to slaughter other witches? That is too much of an underestimation of the Holy Light Church. After all, the Holy Light magic is best at healing, and can even bring the dead back to life. Sending only an ancestor level bloodline to assassinate the apprentice saint in the Holy City, or in the Pope's palace, is almost impossible to succeed, and will instead alert the enemy like now. Is Jonah's witch feast really a script for Sleeping Beauty in the fairy tale? The attack is just to put her into a deep sleep? But do those crazy people in the Tower of Truth read fairy tales? It's completely unrelated. This assassination was full of weirdness and irrationality. Wright couldn't help but mutter, we still have to start with the dark tribes lurking in the Holy City, figure out their purpose, and maybe we can reverse the purpose of the assassination. Without sufficient evidence, no matter how much reasoning, it is just conjecture. After Wright closed the cell door, he turned and walked towards the stairs. Let's go and see Adros. Yes. Please come this way. Although it is unknown what conclusion Wright has drawn, the Knight Commander is obviously more concerned about Saint Adros. After all, since the establishment of the Holy Light Church, the Black Temple has not been well received. There are only a handful of saints who are really willing to come to the trial to train. The most important thing is, when the successor of the Pope, that is, the son or the saint, is determined, the remaining 9 young people will completely lose their original identities. Then they will be assigned to the various power core institutions of the Holy See and be trained as the next leadership team. According to previous experience, the Black Temple is basically the least popular among the 9 people. It is self-evident who will become the future leader of the Black Clothes. Everyone was already in despair, but at this time Saint Adros stood up and made it clear that he wanted to come to the Black Church for further studies. At that moment, Adros was the light of the Black Church, illuminating their future lives. Although the successor to the Pope has not yet been finalized, the people of the Black Church are already relieved. No matter who the future Pope is, as long as the future Black Archbishop is not that gentleman, everyone will be grateful. This also led to several other institutions starting to frantically give gifts to the remaining trainee saints and saints to please them, and began to compete with each other. In the end, it was the Pope's personal order that curbed this unhealthy trend. But some people also spread gossip, saying that the Pope gave the order because he saw that no one gave him gifts, and he felt unbalanced. But no matter what, Adros is very important in the hearts of all the Black Clothes. After all, it is better to send charcoal in the snow than to add icing on the cake. They really hope that Adros can cheer up again. Your Highness, we have arrived at the 7th floor. Chapter 37. This black robe, you don't deserve it. The tower has 9 floors, but the remaining 2 floors are not used to hold prisoners because of their special functions. To enter the 8th floor, the black-robed archbishop must open it himself. To enter the 9th floor, the Pope and 3 archbishops must cast a spell at the same time. Therefore, the prisoners on the 7th floor are already the most vicious and sinful ones in the Inquisition. But now, they are just like the prisoners on the 3rd floor, standing in the cage in an orderly manner, with legs apart and heads down, extremely humble. Even with the experience of the 3rd floor, Flando was as frightened as Emily, and it was difficult to accept it for a while. The ancestor level vampires were only imprisoned on the 3rd floor. It can be seen what kind of scourge the 7th floor is. The natural disaster level is the bottom line, the extinction level is very common, and there are even several catastrophe level wanted criminals. Any one of these people can cause a large-scale extinction disaster. Now they are just lowering their heads, not even having the courage to look at their own people. No, they don't even have the courage to look at that man. They were really curious about what kind of crazy things Wright had done in the short 2 years he had been in the Holy City to achieve such an effect. But Wright was already accustomed to this scene. He walked through it as if he was going home and led everyone to the last cell on the 7th floor. This was originally his exclusive room. Now, there was another person sitting there. He was wearing a black monk's robe, with unkempt hair and eyes, sitting there blankly. If you didn't know, you would think it was a sculpture that hadn't been cleaned for a long time. Even when it heard the footsteps, the sculpture remained indifferent. Until Wright stood in front of him and laughed. "The noble son of holy light, is this the way you are?" Fortunately, your group of little fans didn't follow you, otherwise their girlish dreams would be shattered. "Right, you're finally here. Are you waiting for me?" "I'm waiting for trial." "Okay, why?" "Because of my dereliction of duty. My colleague's life is in danger. Jonah is not dead yet. Depending on her final outcome, your sentence will be different." Wright looked him up and down, "But I feel that she hasn't come out with the result yet, and you've already finished your calf. What, is this some kind of slow suicide method you invented?" "I'm guilty." Adros' eyes were slightly red, but because he hadn't drunk any water for a long time, he couldn't even shed tears. It can only be said that fortunately, Holy Light has been supporting his life, otherwise he would have died long ago. Seeing him like this, Wright sighed. He familiarly took out a small stool from a dark corner of the cell and sat in front of Adros. "When I left the Holy City 3 years ago, you guys went to the East Main Gate to see me off. At that time, I gave you and Taylor some criticism. I said that, although Taylor was a stupid cow, you were far inferior to him. I still remember how you looked very unconvinced." "What did you say at that time?" "Oh, Adros, have never made any mistakes so far. All tasks have been completed perfectly, and all assessments have passed with full marks. How am I inferior to this stupid cow? Now, have you figured it out?" Looking at Adros' still confused eyes, Wright sighed. "Adros, you are a sword made of glass. Pure and sharp, but too fragile. You can defeat Taylor 100 times, or 1,000 times, or even 10,000 times, but he will still stand in front of you. But he only needs to defeat you once, and you will completely collapse. Failure is the end for you, but it is another beginning for him. This is the most essential difference between the two of you. People can pursue perfection, because only by pursuing perfection can they be motivated, work hard, pay attention to details, and achieve outstanding results. But your pursuit of perfection does not conflict with accepting imperfections. The huge Holy Light Church has existed for hundreds of years and has created such a glorious today. Isn't it also accomplished by countless imperfect people who have come one after another? There is no absolutely perfect person, but haven't we all come to this day?" After Wright finished speaking, the whole cell fell into silence. Flando couldn't help but whispered to Emily beside her, "So this person is so reasonable? I thought he was just unreasonable." Emily couldn't help but think of the thriving and positive dungeon in her own home, and shook her head without comment. It's hard to comment. You will understand after you have been in contact for a long time. At this time, the Knight Commander also hurriedly said, "Yes, Your Highness Adros. Your Highness Wright is right. No one is perfect. It doesn't matter if you are imperfect, and no one has blamed you. It is not your responsibility this time. There are still many things in the Black Templar that need you to take charge of the overall situation. Let's go out first, okay?" Taylor also came over to persuade him. "Adros, I know you are in a bad mood, but there are many solutions to a bad mood. Look, the boss is back. How about we go to the boss's house for a barbecue?" The boss said it well. There is nothing that can't be solved by a barbecue. If there is, then have another meal. I got a piece of premium earth dragon meat 2 days ago. And the dwarf's collection of fine wine. Let's get drunk. The next day is a new day. Faced with everyone's persuasion, Adros suddenly opened the hands extended by the two. No. It's not like that. It shouldn't be like this. Mistakes should be severely punished. Discipline should be regulated. It's because everyone is like this. The Black Temple has become a place where filth and dirt are hidden. It has bred so many scums. Evildoers. People who go along with the crowd. I want to prove it to my father. I want him to know. As a member of the Black Church. Just obey the law. Abide by your duties. Always regulate yourself with the doctrine. Even if you don't do those dirty and abominable things, you can still do your best. I've worked so hard for so long, I can obviously do it. But I failed in a place like this. Adros grabbed his hair in pain, and the Knight Commander sighed helplessly upon seeing this. Wright suddenly supported his knees with both hands, and slowly stood up. Taylor trembled all over, and quickly protected everyone out of the cell. Go, go, go. What's wrong? What's wrong? The boss is a patient man, but not very patient. This is over. Adros is going to suffer. Before he finished speaking, Wright in the cell suddenly hooked up the small stool with his foot, grabbed it in his hand, and swung it at Adros. With a bang, the latter was directly whipped out, and hit the wall heavily. Wright threw away the remains of the wooden stool, and seemed to feel unsatisfied, so he stepped forward, and kicked it hard again. The Knight Commander was so scared, that his face turned pale, grabbing the iron bars and shouting, Your Highness Wright. Don't be impulsive. Adros is just because of his father's affairs. I know about his father's affairs. Wright stopped, brushed 2 holy healing spells on the dying Adros, and then kicked him twice. I beat him because of this. Wright stretched out his hand, and lifted Adros in front of him, staring at him intently. Young Master of Holy Light, you really know how to talk. I thought everyone was just calling you a joke, but it turns out you really want to be a flawless sword? Do you know why I hit you? Because you violated the doctrine. It is written in the 7th summary of the 3rd chapter of the Holy Light Codex, that white is the symbolic color of holy light. As a believer of holy light, why do you wear black clothes all year round? You don't even know the meaning of the existence of the black-clad believers, and you are speaking shamelessly here. Wright threw him to the ground in disgust. Sheep don't need sheepdogs who cherish their fur. What they want are sharp claws, sharp teeth, and the awareness of fighting to the death with the wolf, even if they are covered in blood. Come on, take off his monastic robes for me. He doesn't deserve this touch of darkness. Chapter 38. Can you do it? You. What gives you the right? When Adros heard that Wright was going to take off his black monastic robe, he stood up with the help of the wall. Do you know how the outside world describes the black clothes? Hiddenness. Villains. Guys who eat people without leaving any bones. People's fear and malice towards the black clothes are greater than towards the devil. Is this the result you want? That's right. Wright said without hesitation. How else do you let them suppress evil and hunt devils? Rely on your bright and beautiful appearance, or your perfect resume? Do you fantasize about showing all the awards and certificates you have received since childhood when you see the enemy, and the other party will be shocked and bow down after seeing them, and then change their minds and reform themselves? If you care so much about other people's eyes, and want everyone to love you, you might as well debut as an idol, and put away your high-handed attitude and self-righteous virtues. You clamor to come to the Black Temple, but you look down on them in your bones. You think you are a savior, and you are determined to give the Black Temple a new life, and change their impression in the hearts of the public. Do you think you are great? The worst people you have ever seen in your life are those who spit everywhere, and feel sick when they hear someone swear. You have kindergarten level life experience, and you still want to teach this one lesson and rescue that one. You are not worthy of it. Wright swung his fist, and knocked Adros to the ground again. You have been in the Black Temple for 3 years. Do you know the origin of this black robe? The monastic robes of the first generation of black monks were originally white, but they performed the dirtiest, hardest and most dangerous tasks. The black on their monastic robes is the color of the blood of their enemies and themselves, mixed with mud and stains. At that time, all believers and clergy respected them very much, because the black on the monastic robes represents the hard work and sins they have paid for the Holy See and everyone. In the end, even the goddess of holy light was impressed by their sacrifice and dedication, and issued a divine decree to allow them to wear black, which is completely opposite to the symbolic color of holy light, carrying darkness and guarding light. This is the belief of the black monks. Among all the institutions under the temple, only the Black Temple is the most short of manpower. Do you know why? Because other institutions have compulsory collection and conditioning. Once selected, you cannot refuse. Only the Black Temple has never forcibly recruited personnel, because the black monks know that without awareness and belief, they can't do these things at all. They would rather do the work of several people than throw these sins and dirty things on others. How can there be a peaceful life? Someone is carrying the burden for you. You can be ungrateful, but you are not qualified to come and point fingers at them. Looking at a dross who was lying on the ground, Wright said coldly, "Your father carried so much, just to give you a piece of pure land. Unexpectedly, you are ashamed of him? Let me tell you, all the sorrows he has suffered in his life combined are not as great as the harm you have caused him. Take off your monastic robes. You don't deserve to wear the same black robe as your father." Boss. Taylor came forward and grabbed Wright. "Don't say any more. Adros, the boss is very disappointed with you. You should express your attitude. Are you really going to take off this black robe?" "No." Adros stood up again tremblingly, but this time he didn't hold onto the wall. The Knight Commander wanted to help him, but was stopped by Taylor. "Right, boss. I know I was wrong. Please, give me another chance. I will prove it to you, to my colleagues in the Black Temple, to the goddess, and to my father. Adros, I'm not a coward. I'm not afraid of sacrifice. I also have the belief to bear the darkness and protect the light. Please, give me another chance." Wright looked at Adros's determined and eager eyes and waved to Lilith behind him. The latter immediately flew forward and drew a dark magic circle in front of Wright. Wright reached out and fumbled in the magic circle and pulled out a long sword. The Knight Commander recognized it at a glance. Black gold blood weeping sword. Emily was also extremely shocked. She clearly remembered that on the day she first arrived in the Holy City, this thing was piled up with other sundries in the living room on the first floor of Wright's house. How could it suddenly? She suddenly looked at Lilith. Could it be that the magic circle just now was space magic? Such a profound spell is definitely not something that an ordinary succubus can cast. And the blow that killed the demon god at Lawrence Manor didn't seem like a succubus ability. Wright didn't care what they were thinking and directly unsealed the black gold bloodthirsty sword. This was the sword of the second generation of the Dark Lord. The powerful and terrifying pressure surged out instantly, and the prisoners in the entire black iron prison trembled. But fortunately, the prisoners on the 7th floor said that their emotions were stable, and they were even a little curious. Ding. Wright threw the black gold bloodthirsty sword in his hand and stabbed it directly in front of Adros. Opportunities are always fought for by oneself. Conquer it. I can give you a task that will make your father proud of you. The Knight Commander panicked. No, Your Highness Wright. What if His Highness Adros's mind is corroded? What should we do? Do it in a grand manner. Wright's eyes were cold, and he shook the holy man's medal in his hand. It just so happens that he is in the cell on the 7th floor. Once the cell door is closed, everything will be fine. Anyway, he likes to be in prison so much, so let him continue to be in prison, which can be regarded as fulfilling his wish. Then we will tell the public that Saint Adros surrendered to the black gold bloodthirsty sword and unfortunately died in battle. Give him a death pension. You write a report, and I will approve the note. At this time, Adros took a deep breath and grasped the hilt of the black gold bloodthirsty sword with one hand. Well, a strong dark will suddenly invaded, and Adros almost lost his position directly. Fortunately, his will has been beaten and has become particularly firm. He actually pushed the opponent back. One man and one sword. A long tug-of-war began. The black gold bloodthirsty sword was fierce and almost always had the upper hand. But Adros's will was also very tenacious, and he kept resisting with gritted teeth. Slowly, he actually regained the lost ground bit by bit, and finally fought against the opponent. After all, He was an apprentice saint, and he was still quite capable. However, this also aroused the ferocity of the black gold bloodthirsty sword. It aroused the last dark will, and launched a general attack on Adros. Adros, who could have maintained the situation, was defeated and struggled to support. At the critical moment, Wright spoke slowly. Adros, are you willing to join the Black Clothes? Of course I am. Even if you are misunderstood, even if you are cursed, even if you are deeply filthy and sinful. Are you willing to do it? Adros clenched the hilt of the sword with both hands. Yes. No. Regret. The powerful momentum rushed endlessly, suppressing the black gold sword. Well then, I'll tell you. If you want to punish the evil, you have to be able to conquer it. If you want to punish sin, you have to be able to control it. Adros, can you do it? Stimulated by Light's words, Adros burst out with an extremely strong will. The bright white light instantly submerged the bloodthirsty sword, leaving pure white lines unique to the holy light on the black and gold blood. The restless sword, like a tamed horse, finally chose to surrender. Adros pulled out the sword, panting but with a firm look in his eyes. I can do it. Light smiled with satisfaction. Very good. Now I can give you a task. Chapter 39. This name is safe. Such a huge holy city, with so many power conflicts. Facing the aggressive enemy, Wright is not arrogant enough to fight alone. After all, that would be too tiring, and it is not in line with his creed of living an easy life and enjoying life. Therefore, a capable helper is indispensable. Taylor is one of them. Whether it is trust, execution, or his own ability, Wright is very relieved. But talents are also divided into application scenarios. For example, the awakened Adros is more suitable for the next task than Taylor. From now on, you are the new king of the dark race. You will gather the scattered races in the holy city and lead them to make the dark race great again. Because it is your duty to recast the glory of the dark race. Adros suddenly realized, is this an undercover mission? Not accurate. An undercover is to be a younger brother. I will send you to be the boss. So, it's called an undercover. Wright looked at Adros, but I can't let you walk alone in the dark alley. I have to give you a team and make your identity more convincing. Everyone was a little confused after hearing this. After all, they couldn't think of anything that could be more convincing among the dark race than the black gold bloodthirsty sword. Wright didn't explain too much, but gathered a ball of holy light with one hand, and then suddenly squeezed it to explode. The shattered light turned into holy crows, hovering and flying around him. No 007, number 95,287, number 89,757, number 12,138, number 100,086. Step out. Every time Wright read a name, a holy crow flew over and landed on the seal of the corresponding prisoner's cage. The iron doors were pushed open one after another, and the prisoners who were called lined up behind Wright and bowed. Not to me, but to him. Light pointed at the dazed Adros and said, pledge allegiance to your new king, and then assist him well. There is a woman in the dark tribe, who overestimates her own abilities and actually wants to get her hands on the throne, blaspheme the darkness, and lead the entire tribe into a dead end. Fortunately, the new king has ascended the throne at this moment, and with your help, he can put things right. The dark tribe will eventually open a new chapter under the leadership of the new king. Well, the rest of the time will be left for you to exchange feelings as king and minister. I have other things to do, so I won't disturb you. Light waved his hand and left with the rest of the people, and the dark prisoners he called slowly knelt on one knee towards Adros to perform the king minister ceremony. Your Highness. Your Highness. The Knight Commander came quickly to Light and said, is it really okay to let these guys go like this? What if they have rebellious intentions? What if they betray us? The ones you just released are all catastrophe level dark clans. What if? Light glanced at him and said, if these situations happen, Adros will handle it. If he can't handle it, he doesn't deserve to be the Dark King. Besides, if I let him go on a mission, I have to give him some novice gift packs, right? The Knight Commander took a breath and thought that your novice gift pack was a bit too explosive. Kelst, you underestimate the flawless sword of your black people. Wright climbed the stairs, his tone full of affirmation. Although he has some problems with his thinking, his ability is unquestionable. Don't forget that even the holy Jonah was walking on thin ice when dealing with the affairs of the church. Even so, she didn't dare to say that she had never made a mistake in all these years and that all the tasks were perfectly completed. But Dross can. Do you think why your Archbishop Cardigan still treats him as a treasure, even though he knows that he has problems? It is because he is of the highest quality in courage, skill, strategy, and strength, but he just puts his strength in the wrong place. Once he figures it out one day, the gears will mesh correctly. The Black Church will usher in the most powerful Black Archbishop in history. However, I don't have the patience to wait for him to slowly awaken. After hearing what Wright said, all the worries of the Knight Commander were swept away, and he was even a little excited. A Black Archbishop who rules the entire Dark Race. The Black Church will undoubtedly usher in the most glorious era in history. No. The entire Holy Light Church will enter an unprecedented heyday. Celts realized that he might have witnessed history just now. As they were talking, everyone had left the Black Iron Dungeon and returned to the courtyard of the Inquisition. For a long time to come, the entire Holy City will be in a special state of combat readiness. Wright once again showed the Holy Man's medal in his hand. So, the Paladin Order will send some people into the Holy City to take over the city defense and daily patrols. Celt's heart, which had just calmed down, began to beat wildly again. This. How can this be possible? The Paladin Order is not allowed to enter the Holy City. This is the Iron Rule established when the Paladins were founded. Don't worry about the Paladins. I'll find someone to mediate. No way. The defense and public security of the Holy City have always been the responsibility of our Black Templar. Wright smiled slightly. You Black Templar have other tasks. Adross's mission is very dangerous, so you need the full cooperation of your Black Templar. I'm also helping you to reduce the burden, so that you have enough manpower and energy to cooperate with him. It's okay if you don't want to, but I can't guarantee Adross life or death. You don't want the future star of the Black Templar to fall because of insufficient support, do you? Celt suddenly felt cold all over, and he realized that the other party's plan just now was not only aimed at the Dark Race, he even took the Black Templar into account. If you do this, Archbishop Cardigan will not. He will. His precious heir is in my hands. Wright turned his head and looked at the busy Inquisition. What's more, your Black Temple is small in number. The Holy Advent ceremony has caused a surge in the floating population of the Holy City. City defense and public security have long been beyond your capabilities, right? For the sake of face, if something goes wrong, the Black Temple will be the sinner. You also heard what Adross said. The reputation of the Black Clothes is not good. Then take the blame. I can't let my brothers bleed and sweat, and finally shed tears. Celt smiled bitterly, and lowered his head, as if resigned to his fate. I will convey your orders to my colleagues in the Inquisition, Your Highness. Wright patted the other's shoulder, and turned to leave the Inquisition with his people. After leaving the door, Taylor came over with a smile. Boss, it has to be you. The old guys in the military and political department have been arguing with Cardigan for so long, and the Black Templars didn't agree. Once you stepped in, it was easily resolved. Haha. I've got to see those old guys' dumbfounded expressions when I go back. Humph, the Church of Holy Light should have been reformed long ago. The Vatican and the Church are so clearly divided. Everything is half the effort with twice the results. It's upsetting to watch. Taylor, the people in charge of city defense and public security need to form a new army, but it must be under the name of both the Church and the Vatican. I don't trust others to do this, so you'll be the one to take charge. Taylor happily grabbed Wright's shoulders and shook him back and forth. Really, boss? I knew there would be meat to eat if I followed you. Well, what's the name of the new army? Since the new army is responsible for the city defense and public security management of the Holy City, let's call it the Holy New Army. Boss, I feel that your name and function are not related at all. That's right, this name is safe. Wright glanced at the court behind him and said, by the way, when you go back to form a new army, make another statement. Say that the new army is being formed, and in order to recruit more people, it is preparing to release quotas for regularization from 3 exiled sects. For specific details, please pay attention to the notice issued by the Red Temple in the near future. Chapter 40. Think about it carefully. I think what you did was wrong. After sending Taylor away, Wright took the 3 girls back to the Pope's palace and got on a carriage to go home. In the carriage, Fland looked at Wright very seriously. "What you did is a blatant challenge to the law and the system." Light lay in the most comfortable corner, looking at him with squinted eyes. "I don't want you to feel. I want me to feel. You. Call me master. Otherwise I will send you to Lilith to learn etiquette." Lilith, who was as lazy as him, suddenly became energetic. "Really? It's a deal. Finally there is a new toy. Hey, Light. If I accidentally break her, will you blame me? I'm serious." Flando came to Light. "Do you know the consequences of doing this?" Light raised his eyelids. "I remember you are a Protestant, right? The spiritual totem is the god of light. In the doctrine of your faction, the status of the law is very high, right? I didn't expect you to have some knowledge. Then can I ask you a question about your doctrine?" "Of course. I'm happy to answer you." Light twisted his body to sit up straight and also pretended to ask a very serious question. "If I do something that the law does not prohibit, is it illegal?" "Of course not." "If I do something that the law does not grant me the right to do, is it illegal?" "Of course it is." "Then if I do something that the law does not prohibit and does not grant me the right to do, is it illegal or not?" This. Flando's brows twisted into a ball, feeling that something was wrong, but she couldn't put it into words. Wright looked at Flando, who was fooled by him, and shook his head helplessly. "Is it difficult to answer? Then I'll change the question. If a person exploits a loophole in the law, is it the person's fault or the law's fault?" Flando performed better this time. "It's the fault of both parties. Both the person and the law are wrong. If the law is wrong, is it still a law? No. Yes. It is a law, but it is a wrong law. Then is it right or wrong for this person to achieve the correct result by exploiting a loophole in the wrong law? That. Looking at Flando, who was about to cry, Wright asked the last question. "Then the meaning of the law, is it existence itself, or is it to mark right and wrong?" Flando looked at her hands blankly, like a sculpture. Emily can be said to have witnessed Flando's transition from being aggressive to nearly collapsing, and the whole process took less than 5 minutes. She asked cautiously, "So, is it right or wrong? What's the right or wrong in the law?" "There's only violation and compliance. And compliance with the law is just a reference indicator for measuring behavior. Not to mention, right and wrong are relative and changing." Wright smiled bitterly and looked at Emily. "I'm teasing her. Don't get involved." After hearing this, Flando was immediately angry and embarrassed. Are you kidding me?" Wright smiled. "It doesn't matter whether I'm kidding you or not. What's important is, did you have a little doubt about your beliefs just now? You don't need to prove anything to me. You can't fool yourself anyway." Flando's expression suddenly became extremely flustered. It was obvious that when she was confused just now, she did doubt her original beliefs. After realizing this, Flando felt extremely disgusted with herself. At this time, Wright's expression suddenly became extremely gentle. He stretched out his hand and pressed it on Flando's head. "Don't blame yourself, because you are not wrong. Don't blame the god of light, because God is not wrong either." Although Flando resisted his hand, her desire for knowledge obviously prevailed. "Who is wrong then? You misinterpreted the gospel of the god. The wrong understanding of the belief in God has caused a distorted cognition and then fell into the abyss of confusion. It's like I wrote you a letter and said a sentence, but because of the misunderstanding, there was an unnecessary misunderstanding between you and me. So, neither the believers nor the gods are wrong. It's just a misunderstanding." Flando nodded repeatedly, as if she had grabbed a life-saving straw. Yes. Everyone is right, and God can't be wrong. It's just that we misunderstood." Lilith, who was standing by, covered her eyes, looking like she couldn't bear to watch. Wright opened his hands, and a white light shone on his body, looking extremely sacred. Even the sound of his voice became vague and ethereal. "Law is the cornerstone. The meaning of law is support. Under morality, affection, and etiquette, there must be law to support. Without the support of law, morality, and etiquette will become castles in the air. If a society only has laws, then the world will inevitably be corrupted. But if there are no laws, it will directly fall into disorder and chaos, and morality and etiquette will naturally become castles in the air, and there is no way to talk about it. The law of light is the same. The God of light gave you the way of law, so that you can lay a solid foundation for the holy light. Only when the most basic laws are perfected, can the high rise of the holy light rise to the sky, create immortality. Flando knelt in front of light. Then, how can we perfect the law of light? Light persuaded step by step, and his voice became more and more ethereal, as if it could reach people's souls directly. The perfect law lies in being able to justify itself. A self-contradictory law naturally cannot become a cornerstone. Countless fluorescent lights gathered into a streamer in front of him, and then slowly twisted, and turned into a halo. This is the perfect law of light. You can also call it the ring of law. After saying that, Wright gently placed the halo on Flander's head. At that moment, Flander felt extremely sacred. Seeing this, Emily couldn't help but blurt out, "Isn't this an angel? It's just without the wings of light. Look." Wright clapped his hands. "In the dark, the God of light has already given you directions. It's just that you misunderstood before, which led to you standing still. Now that you have found the right direction, isn't everything right? As long as you master the perfect law of light, you are the angels of the God of light walking on earth. Think about it. Think about it carefully." Lilith couldn't help but whispered, "The halo of an angel is not the ring of law." Wright glared at Lilith fiercely and blocked her sideways. "So that's it? No. It should be like this." Flander felt the ring of light above her head, and her face flushed with excitement. "No. I have to tell everyone in the new church about this." Unexpectedly, Wright held her down and said, don't worry. Have you mastered how to forge the light ring now?" Flander was stunned, then shook her head. "So, you must perfect yourself first, before you can perfect others." "Yes, Master is right." Flando knelt on the ground devoutly. "Great Master, please forgive Flando's previous rudeness and arrogance. Please let me serve you, follow you to learn how to forge the light ring. For this, Flando is willing to do anything." Wright showed a satisfied smile. "Don't worry, I will definitely teach you well. Thank you readers for your support, voting and rewards." Huang Dao was grateful. Chapter 41. Do you know how to fish? Why do I have to cook for myself when I have a maid? Wright sulked and brought the 4 dishes and a soup to the table. Lilith picked up the tableau impatiently, not forgetting to ridicule. "You deserve it. Who told you to drive the only maid crazy yesterday?" Wright gave her a look of disgust. "Eat. So much food can't stop you from eating. Wow. So delicious. Such a unique taste." Emily pointed at the soup bowl and asked in surprise, "This white thing is so delicious. Is it a specialty of the holy city?" Wright served himself a bowl. "This is a specialty of my hometown, called tofu. It's made of soybeans. Eat more if you like it. I have saved some for Flando. It's amazing. Who is the master after all?" "Lilith, I didn't say anything about you, did I?" Lilith put down the cutlery and muttered impatiently, "Oh, yes, Master. I wanted to warm your bed and sleep with you last night. Why didn't you want to?" "Haha, I was afraid of being hurt." "Huh? What did you say? What did you just say? Who do you think caused me to be like this now? Wait until I recover. Me. I'll fascinate you." Wright picked his nose with a look of disdain. "Ah, yes. Oh, Mayor, I'm so obsessed with her. I will fight you." Lilith threw herself on Wright's head and began to retaliate crazily. Emily smiled awkwardly, then asked, "Well, Your Highness Wright, what are we going to do today?" "Just call me Wright from now on. You are not a clergyman." Wright pulled Lilith off his head and stuffed a piece of fried candy cake into her mouth to calm her down. "There's nothing special to do today, but I think it won't be long before the Red Cardinal and the Black Cardinal will come to call for justice. How about a bet on who will arrive first?" Emily was obviously not very interested in the bet. "Why, aren't you going to assign me a task?" "Huh? What task?" Emily gestured with her hands. "Didn't you say it? There are 4 main enemies in the holy city now. Pagans, the remnants of the truth, the dark race and the Protestants. You support His Highness Adros to deal with the dark race, right? The 3 heretical sects regularization quotas are to deal with the pagans, right? Winning over Flando is also to deal with the Protestants, right? Now, shouldn't we deal with the remnant of the truth? Am I not the one in your mind? After listening to this, Wright laughed. Why, your understanding of my layout methods only stays at the level of fighting back. Letting heroes persuade heroes, and letting good men investigate good men is indeed not bad, but 1-to-1 correspondence is not my style of doing things. Emily was a little confused. So, what are you going to do? Wright stirred the clear soup in the bowl. In our hometown, there is a rather cruel dish called loach drilling tofu. The preparation process of this dish is complicated, but the principle is very simple. The chef will put clear water in the pot, and then put a piece of tofu and a few small fish called loaches in the water. Then, heat it slowly over low heat. As the water temperature rises, the loaches will drill into the cool tofu until they are cooked together with the tofu. Emily shuddered after hearing this, and the tofu in the bowl suddenly lost its fragrance. Why are you saying this? I want to tell you that you have misunderstood my plan. Wright knocked on the soup bowl. Now, the entire holy city is my iron pot, and those dark tribes or the remnants of the truth are just small loaches in it. I'll let the new army of paladins enter the city to strengthen the city defense and public security. And I liberated all the black-clothed people and asked them to cooperate in the operation. All of this is slowly heating up the clear water in this iron pot. In your opinion, who is the tofu? Emily looked at the soup bowl thoughtfully. For the Dark Tribe, His Highness Adros must be a piece of tofu. But joining his army means betraying the Witch of Blood. Although some dark tribes will choose this path, there will definitely be many D-heads left. Wright chuckled. What if I relax the control and inspection of heretical sects, and encourage them to bite and swallow each other? Emily widened her eyes. Then these heretical sects will become the second piece of tofu. The dark race relies on the magic of the Blood Witch to avoid being detected by the Holy Light Array. When the water temperature of the holy city continues to rise, they will eventually choose to take risks and live in various heretical sects. In this way, they can avoid the inspection of the holy city and avoid being cleared out by His Highness Adros. But can this really be done? Will the holy city become chaotic because of sectarian disputes? Wright shook his fingers. No, it is an orderly chaos. Because the ultimate goal of these heretical sects is to become regular, so they must be obedient and make chaos according to the rules of the game we set. If they don't obey, they will be disqualified from competing for regularization. Then they will be attacked by other sects in the next moment, and they will be eaten up in a blink of an eye. Don't underestimate the internal power of competition for jobs. Emily felt her head swell. But you still didn't say how to deal with the remnants of the Church of Truth. Those people are really difficult to deal with. They are powerful, few in number, and good at hiding. Even if you boil the water, it is difficult to force them out. So, we have to fish for them like fishing. Emily was a little helpless. How is that possible? They must be very cautious and vigilant now. But what if I have a bait that they will definitely eat? Wright said as he spread out his hands, and a holy light ring appeared on his palm. However, on the ring, the fire element began to condense, and then formed a fireball. Emily seemed to be frightened and jumped up with a bang. Fireball? How do you know fireball? If you are a remnant of the Church of Truth, and you see me using holy light to cast fireball, would you want to find out? Not to mention the remnants of the Church of Truth, all elemental mages. No. Anyone with a certain knowledge of magic would want to know. Emily couldn't help but move closer to observe. How did you do it? In addition to the maximum affinity for light element, do you have affinity for other element? This fireball is made of holy light. This is the power of the magic ring. Wright swung the fireball in his hand. Remember elemental absorption? Of course I remember. It is the replacement of low energy element with high energy element. Holy light is the leap state of the light element. It can be replaced regardless of whether other elements are active or not. Emily waved her hands repeatedly, but the magic element you replaced should be non-standard. When you defeated that old vampire butler, you said that non-standard magic element cannot form magic at all. You don't have an affinity with fire, so you shouldn't be able to mark its soul. Wright was very pleased. It seems that you did listen to my lectures. That's right, the soul mark on it is not mine. It's from the God of Light. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 42. If you are a magician, hold on for 100 seconds. When a clergyman casts a divine spell, the cost is shared by the caster and the god. You should have remembered what I said, right? The fireball in Wright's hand grew rapidly, turning into a continuous stream of fireballs. So, the spirit of the god can also calibrate the element. Emily still couldn't believe it, but how can the god of light calibrate the fire element? Wright looked at Emily, his eyes full of helplessness. What have you learned from your teacher over the years? Your teacher is really misleading. Let me ask you a basic question. Who came up with the concept of elemental affinity? Emily wanted to refute Wright, but she really didn't know these things, and she hesitated and blushed with shame. I expected that you didn't study hard, so I'll tell you. The concept of elemental affinity was first proposed by the elves. It's called affinity because all elves are all-round magicians. It's just that for them, if the affinity for a certain element is high, it will be easier to cast magic of this attribute and the power will be greater. It's like I have a group of friends, some of whom I have good relationships with, and some of whom I don't have such close relationships with. I feel more comfortable talking and doing things with people I have good relationships with. So, they call it affinity, which is used to indicate which attribute element you are closer to. Humans have inferior soul strength to elves. For humans, only when the affinity meets the standard can they cast magic of the corresponding attribute. If it doesn't meet the standard, the soul mark cannot be engraved. So you understand, right? With the soul strength of God, you can engrave marks on all magic element. Of course, it will be more difficult to engrave element that are not in line with your divinity. But, what does it have to do with me if the gods have to work hard? So that's how it is. Emily thought for a moment, and then suddenly realized, no, how can the gods let you control them? They will definitely refuse. Ha 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 ha, you still found out. Well, it seems that you are not hopelessly stupid. Wright shook his fingers, and dispersed the fire element. Indeed, the gods will definitely not agree to help the believers do such troublesome and trivial things. I had a quarrel with that stinky-faced goddess, because of this matter. But the god of light will. Because he has to do it. Why? He owes you money. Almost, he has to make extra money from me. Wright expanded the halo, and stretched out his hand to cover Emily's head. The god of light has so few believers, and he is being chased and blocked by the goddess of holy light. It won't be long, before he will run out of ammunition and food. I just cast a fireball, but my energy consumption is still more than that of a fire mage casting a fireball. About 1.2:1 point. This price difference becomes the extra income of the gods, that is, the labor fee. If it wants to hold its ground in front of the goddess of light, it must work honestly for me. And I think that the current loss ratio is still high. Wait until the later stage. When more people use the light ring, this ratio can be reduced further. Emily covered her mouth with both hands. You even exploit God. Lilith patted her belly and glanced at him. What kind of wicked thing can't he do? Don't say that. I gave it a job opportunity. Let it get experience and learn a skill. It should be grateful. Seeing that the two women obviously showed disgust, Wright coughed twice. That's an evil god. He ran to the house of the goddess of holy light to rob. I'm punishing him. Emily felt the magic ring above her head, but I have to say that the magic ring system you created has a fatal attraction to the remnants of truth. But I think that all you have done may not be able to clear all the enemies. There must be fish that slip through the net. Lilith reached out and poked Wright's cheek, because this person didn't intend to clean up the enemies at all. He just wanted to force people out and catch a few leaders. Then, let me read their souls and find clues related to the witch. Finally, find a way to save his old lover. Oh, no wonder. You spent so much effort, both tofu and bait, and went around in such a big circle, but what you really caught were the remnants of truth and the followers of darkness. This is all related to the witch. Wright raised his finger and hit them on the head one by one. Just say whether you have protected the peace of the holy city. Why are you thinking so one-sidedly? Saving people and saving the city are not in conflict. Lilith held her face and said sourly, I think it's save people and save the city at the same time. You have to wash the pots and pans today. I'll wash them. Lilith was not moved at all and stretched out her hand to start cleaning the table. Emily wanted to help, but Wright waved her to sit down. I just told you so much. Do you understand my purpose? Emily nodded. Show off. Wright stretched out his hand and hit her on the forehead again. I want you to face the reality. In this siege, I didn't consider you as a combat force from the beginning. You are a 5th level elemental magician with only the 3rd level, and you dare to ask me for a mission with such brazenness? What else do you say? Leave the remnants of the truth to you. What can you do to deal with them? Use your meager knowledge to make them laugh to death. Emily sat there dejected and was scolded so much that she didn't dare to look up. If you want revenge, then work hard. You must at least break through to the saint level to be eligible to participate. Because you already have the magic power reserve of the critical saint level after devouring the soul crystal core of the blood witch last time. As long as your spiritual level is raised, you will soon be able to master powerful power. This good show will definitely give you a chance to perform. So, next, your only task is to become stronger. Understand? Emily stood up with a bang. I understand. I will work hard to become stronger. Okay. Then I will send you to special training. Special training? What special training? Wright clapped his hands and stood up. That's it. If you are a magician, hold on for 100 seconds. I will give you a blessing later, and then let Lilith throw you into the elemental subspace. It's full of various elemental creatures. My light elemental lord was caught from there. You have to find a way to hold on long enough in there, and at the same time, imitate and comprehend the secrets of magic. Don't worry, if you suffer lethal damage, the blessing will be triggered, reviving you and teleporting you back. I will give you hot tea, re-show blessing, and then kick you into the Asian element space again. Indications. The aperture on Emily's head extends several chains of light and tied her into a dumplings. The portal of the portal is opened. I beg you all. It's not easy to be a young seedling. Please read more. Chapter 43 Unexpected Attack. Wright sat in the corridor with his back to the restaurant, basking in the sun. Lilith leaned over the window and tickled his ears with her hair. What are you thinking about? I'm thinking, since Emily is a full system magician, then the 7 witches should not be divided according to the element. At first, I thought she was the witch of wind, and then I learned about the witch of blood and the witch of light. This made me fall into a misunderstanding. It's true that elemental magicians are just a branch of the wizard category. There are also arcane wizards, alchemists, blood sacrifice wizards, and druids. Their witch plan should be more grand and not limited to magic element. It's my inertial thinking. But the magic circle opened in the restaurant, and Emily, who was covered with scars, fell to the ground. As the light of blessing on her body lit up, she suddenly turned over and sat up, gasping for breath. Without even turning his head, Wright asked, how long will it take this time? Lilith calculated silently, 38 seconds, which is already a big improvement. I think we should stop here today. How far is this? The key is that she has no clothes to change into. Wright was helpless about this. His magic could save Emily's life and restore her physical injuries, but there was no way to deal with the cloth she was wearing. Of course, Wright realized this problem only when Emily was teleported back for the first time. In order to avoid unnecessary misunderstandings, he chose to sit in the corridor and let Lilith be in charge of supervision. Wright sighed, then, okay. Wow. WUU. But now, being a full system magician means that originally you only need to hold out for 100 seconds in the wind element subspace, but now you have to hold out for 100 seconds in all element subspaces. And from what Wright said, there is an elemental main plane where all attribute elemental elves exist waiting for you. At that moment, Emily's heart collapsed. But the result of the collapse was just one more experience of being killed by the elemental elves. This crazy man even made special improvements to the blessing. He made himself only able to use wind magic in the wind element subspace. How could humans compete with wind elemental elves in wind magic? And in the wind element subspace? Crazy. It's just crazy. But after venting hysterically, Emily gradually calmed down. She also admitted that in this short period of less than an hour of prayer, her understanding of the wind element, the use of wind magic, and even her understanding of the law of wind had made leaps and bounds. Have you cried enough? Wright turned around and lay on the windowsill of the restaurant, looking at her with a smile. Many human behaviors are poor imitations of nature, including magic. Have you noticed that the elemental creatures' attacks and defenses seem to have something in common with the magic you use when they open their mouths and raise their hands? Emily wiped her tears. Indeed, it is indeed so. So, they are your best teachers. Wright stood up from behind the windowsill. Didn't you say that you don't want to be a young lady who lives a peaceful life? You don't want to be a helmsman who obeys orders. Instead, you want to be a captain who faces the storms of life. Why, you just fell down when you encountered some stormy waves. After hearing this, Emily struggled to stand up again. Even though her limbs were still shaking, her eyes were much firmer. Who did you say has fallen? This captain. I'll take over. Open the portal. Come again. Report. Captain. Wright put his hands behind his back and winked. Don't shake anymore. Your clothes are almost torn into rags. If you shake again, everything will be exposed. I personally admire your louvered captain's uniform, but this is the holy city. The people are simple and conservative. You'd better be careful. Ah. Emily let out a sharp scream, then turned into a woman like the wind. She rushed to the living room with a whoosh and ran back to the room on the second floor, leaving Wright outside the window, laughing non-stop. Lilith pouted in disgust. Alright. Look how beautiful you are. What's the matter? Miss Lilith, there is no light to go? Lilith suddenly pursed her lips and tears filled her eyes. She opened her hands and began to gather energy. Several sealing spells began to emerge on her body. Wow 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 wow. Wright panicked. He turned over from the window and rushed over to hug Lilith in his arms, holding her hands. No, no, no. I was wrong. I will never joke about this again. Go away. I will unseal today. I won't stand your anger here. One bag. A whole bag of dark magic crystals. Who do you think I am? 10 bags. Hate, why didn't you say so earlier? Looking at Lilith, who happily put down her hands, Wright suddenly felt that he had been fooled. Hiss. No. Isn't this part of your calculation? You don't plan to go back to the demon world at all. Of course. It's fun and free to follow you. Why should I go back to the demon world? Lilith said and threw a wink to Wright. It must be said that, even if it is sealed, the succubus is still a succubus. Wright covered his face with his hands, feeling very upset. I've been hunting geese all day, but I didn't expect that today I would be pecked in the eye by a goose. But 10 bags are too many. Give me a discount. 3 bags. Are you giving me a discount? You're amputating from the knee up. Then, cut it in half. 50 to 50. Okay. Lilith struggled out of Wright's arms and tapped his nose. I didn't ask you to take it out all at once. You can return it slowly in the future. There are guests at the door, so you should go and meet them. After Lilith's reminder, Wright noticed 2 powerful energy fluctuations at the door of the manor. It seems that my vigilance has decreased recently. Is it because I'm back in the holy city and I'm relaxed? Wright reorganized his mood and quickly came to the door of the manor. Outside the fence, 2 figures, one black and one red, just stood there. I didn't expect the 2 archbishops to come together. Fortunately, I didn't make a bet with anyone, otherwise I would have lost miserably. How long have you been here? Cardinal snorted coldly. Not long ago, when we just arrived, we just heard a girl scream. Wright smiled awkwardly. Don't worry about those details. But since you 2 are here, why don't you go into the house and chat? Unexpectedly, the red cardinal waved his hand. No hurry, no hurry. There is another person coming. Another? Wright was stunned for a moment. The white archbishop of the 3 major churches is currently temporarily held by the Pope. He will definitely not come. Then, who else can make the 2 archbishops wait? Just as Wright was wondering, there was a hurried sound of horse hooves in the distance, followed by a rough roar. Right boy, give me your life. A figure jumped up from a distance, holding a huge holy hammer in both hands, and smashed it with the power of destroying the world. The 2 archbishops suddenly had an idea, and dodged to the side in an instant. Wright's face changed drastically, and he quickly summoned his holy sword Synlight, and at the same time, he poured holy healing technique modified over his entire body, instantly increasing his physical functions to the maximum with one click, and finally he did not forget to stretch his neck and shout, "Teacher, be careful of my front door." Chapter 44. Only in the name of the strongest. The sword and the hammer collided. The two holy weapons made an excited sound. The power of just one blow made the huge holy city tremble slightly, like a small earthquake. Wright gritted his teeth and faced this familiar face, feeling very emotional for a moment. "Teacher, is this how you welcome your disciple back? Stop talking nonsense. Let me see if your holy fighting spirit has improved in the past 3 years. Don't use those fancy little tricks. Fight like a man and fight honestly. If your strength progress cannot satisfy me, then I will organize your welcoming banquet and funeral banquet together." Wright struggled to throw the opponent away and made a sword flower with one hand. He was very sure that the old man didn't use fighting spirit at all in the previous blow, but pure physical strength. After 3 years, there is no sign of aging at all. The legendary paladin Constant is recognized as one of the top fighting forces in the human world, and it is definitely not just talk. And judging from the other party's posture, if he didn't deal with it seriously, he might really kill him. Wright couldn't help but look at Cardigan and the other man beside him, 2 archbishops. Are you going to just watch it? Cardinal Delman spread his hands. You have to ask the Black Archbishop about this matter. Cardinal Cardigan put his hands behind his back and snorted coldly. Don't ask me. The public security issues in the Holy City are no longer my responsibility. But if you are interested, I can help you contact the person in charge of the Holy New Army. Wright understood that these two people were determined to watch the show. In desperation, he raised the Synlight and pointed the tip of the sword directly at his paladin teacher Constant. Look, since they don't care, I have no choice but to beat you down. Constant was stunned for a moment, then burst into a wild laugh like a dragon's roar and a lion's roar. Ha ha ha, so you were asking them for help on my behalf. But, I hope your strength is worthy of your arrogance. Constant clenched the holy hammer, and his momentum began to rise wildly. There were still flocculent air threads rising from his body, emitting the same white and gold color as the holy light. This was the manifestation of the holy light fighting spirit unique to the paladin, which began to flow through his body. If the position of the clergy is to benchmark the magician, then the position of the paladin is to benchmark the warrior. And Wright was originally a paladin. He first dispersed the effect of the holy healing technique on his body, and then lifted the blessing of all the divine spells. Looking at the old man's posture, if he didn't beat him to a good fight today, he would forget about it. I haven't used it for a long time. You have to force me. Wright clenched the hilt of the Synlight with both hands, and the holy light fighting spirit began to surge wildly from his body. And judging from its color and richness, it is not weaker than his teachers at all, and even better. Bang! At a speed that the naked eye cannot catch, Wright and Constant collided again. The turbulent shockwave swept across, and the two archbishops subconsciously raised their holy shields to resist. Then, a crazy roar sounded in the empty street. Two white gold lights were constantly colliding and fighting, and the sound of metal fighting was endless. Suddenly, one of the figures was directly pulled out and fell heavily to the ground. The two archbishops looked closely and found that it was Constant. Right in the distance shook his arms, and the holy light fighting spirit on his body kept surging. Teacher, what's wrong? Your old arms and legs can't be moved. Bullshit. Who are you talking about, old arms and legs? A big hole was smashed on the marble floor, but Constant stood up, as if nothing had happened, and hit the gravel on his body. I was drunk the day before yesterday, so you took advantage of me. Now you've sobered me up. You're going to suffer. Your mouth is harder than the holy hammer. The most basic effect of fighting spirit is to strengthen the physical quality of the warrior, greatly improving his strength, speed, endurance, and defense. If it reaches the 5th level, the fighting spirit surrounds the whole body, and it will really become a copper pea that cannot be crushed by a hammer or bitten. Not to mention, the holy light fighting spirit also has the healing effect of holy light. Therefore, high-level paladins are simply the nightmare of the enemy. They can fight and resist with high endurance and finally cause some damage. If you don't pay attention for a while, they will heal themselves. If you encounter a group of them, they can also heal each other, which is really a psychological breakdown. For a legendary paladin like Constant, this just now really didn't do much harm. But even so, the two bishops have already seen the pros and cons. Although the master is old and strong, he is already responding to his own holy weapon. On the other hand, the Sin Light in Wright's hand was still pretending to be dead. So, it was Wright himself who just fought against his legendary paladin teacher and his heirloom level holy weapon. Moreover, he had the upper hand. The two bishops were not surprised by this result, because when Wright left the holy city 3 years ago, his strength was already at the top level among the paladins. Firstly, because of his strong talent, his strength level and the use of fighting spirit have reached the level of Master Constant. Secondly, his martial arts and combat methods that he learned without a teacher are even more unique. Without using fighting spirit, he can almost strike down anyone he hits. Even his understanding of fighting has reached the level of philosophy. No one can understand how Wright, at such a young age, can have such profound attainments in martial arts. But Wright's explanation for this is that these are common sense that can be seen everywhere in his hometown. Which child doesn't know that the waist and horse are united and the power comes from the ground? Even if you can't do the white crane spreads at swings or Sukin carrying a sword, you must be able to do the monkey stealing peaches, right? Just the most basic. Everyone knows it. Swordsmanship, it has to be a set. Not to mention some martial arts talents that are ingrained in the bones along with vegetable planting, firepower shortage fear, and hoarding supplies, which are stimulated little by little in hard training. When Wright recovered, there was no opponent in front of him. But for Wright, the application prospect of fighting spirit is too single, and it only has one use, which is fighting. So he turned to study the magic spell, to pursue a simpler and more comfortable lifestyle. Now, under the stimulation of his teacher Constant, he once again showed the suffocating sense of oppression. The Red Cardinal was more and more frightened as he watched. This kid, doesn't he have any weaknesses? Who knows? Every time I see him take action, there are new tricks. The Black Cardinal, who was also a paladin, shook his head constantly. It's like a bottomless pit. While they were chatting, the master and apprentice had already fought again. But it was obvious that Wright was getting more and more fierce, while Constant was gradually losing the upper hand and was being beaten the whole time. The more Delman watched, the more he frowned. Strange. The gap between the two shouldn't be so big. He is plundering Master Constant's holy light Dao Ki. Every time they collide, the Dao Ki on his sword will bite the opponent's Dao Ki like a shark and then devour and assimilate it. This is probably a new move he has been researching for 3 years. Just as the two archbishops were chatting, the master and apprentice in the distance suddenly changed their moves and launched a magnificent attack at the two archbishops together. The two archbishops were stunned for a moment and then frantically used the Holy Light and Holy Light Dao Ki to try to resist this combined attack. At the same time, they couldn't help but curse. These two bastards. They did it on purpose. Shameless. Shameless from the same lineage. Chapter 45 The one who is going to overturn the pot is here. After the battle, the streets were in a mess. The two culprits and two passers-by victims had come to Wright's manor to rest. Lilith and the three were old acquaintances, and she looked at them with a smile. Strange, wasn't it a fight between the master and the apprentice? How come the two of them were fine, but the two archbishops were covered in dirt and wounds? Cadwyn said nothing with a dark face, and Delman gnashed his teeth in hatred. Shameless. Too shameless. As a result, the two instigators smiled and said nothing, and even their arrogant sitting postures were exactly the same. Lilith covered her mouth and laughed secretly. By the way, who won the duel? Cadwyn snorted coldly. Humph, I don't know who won, but it seems that Archbishop Delman and I lost. Delman slammed the table and stood up. You lost a fart. You ran away halfway through the defense. You still have the nerve to say that. Lilith shook her head helplessly. It seems that, even if we are both unlucky, there are still differences. Wright waved his hand. Okay, don't make trouble. Go and give us a cup of hot tea. After watching the fun, Lilith knew that they were going to talk about business, so she flapped her little wings and left immediately. After waiting for the little devil to leave, Wright looked at Cadwyn and the others. Since the two archbishops are here, I will say it straight. The holy city is in great danger now, so The red cardinal waved his hand to interrupt him. Okay, we know what you want to say. Isn't it just for us to cooperate with you? Let me tell you this. No problem. Wright widened his eyes in surprise. Really? I thought you would be a little upset. Originally. Cardivan looked at the master and disciple with gritted teeth. But after you two fought, it was gone. Master Constantus slapped his thigh. Ah. Really? I didn't expect that a fight between the two of us would have this effect. That's really an unexpected gain. Archbishop Delman rolled his eyes in anger. Okay, Master, that's enough. You are pulling your own disciples to show off your muscles. Don't you just want us to cooperate honestly? To tell you the truth, call right back. It was the two of us who advised the Pope. Can we not cooperate? Wright stood up quickly. Then I'm here. Thank you too. With your cooperation, I feel at ease. Unexpectedly, Cadwin and Delman looked at each other, their eyes full of worry. Wright was a little confused. What? You two? Cadwin looked at Master Constant. You should ask your teacher. Wright looked at the master, who smiled awkwardly. Right, a troublesome person may be coming back. Troublesome person? Who? Your teacher, my beloved disciple. Your beloved disciple. Taylor? Isn't he always at home? Humph. Taylor is a stupid disciple. You kid are a wicked disciple. My beloved disciple. Wright frowned and looked confused, and then as if he realized something, his face suddenly became ugly. Could it be her? The master nodded slightly. Yes, my proud disciple, Saint Vanessa, is on her way to the holy city. Impossible. Wright waved his hands repeatedly. That woman has been exiled by me. She swore in the name of the goddess of holy light that she would not set foot in the holy city within 5 years. Now, there is still 1 year left. I don't believe that as an apprentice saint and the princess of the First Empire of Saint Racina, she dares to openly violate her oath. The cardinal sighed. She can really do it. As you know, the holy tax is the main source of income for the Church of Holy Light. All holy vassal states must pay a considerable fee to the Holy See and the Church every year to thank the goddess of holy light for their protection and assistance. Wright sneered. In fact, you can just say it's protection money. Speaking of which, the goddess of holy light is really kind. She can obviously rob directly, but she insists on imposing a head tax. The three of them were accustomed to Wright's disrespect for the goddess. After all, the goddess herself couldn't take care of it, so they didn't bother to worry about it. The cardinal sorted out his thoughts and continued to explain. The holy visitation ceremony held every 3 years also has another function, which is to gather representatives of all holy vassal states to recalibrate the holy tax ratio for the next 3 years. Timely adjustment of tax collection efforts to make the holy tax more flexible and more in line with the national conditions of each holy vassal state. Wright did not mock this. After all, the holy tax did give preferential treatment or even exemption to some countries that suffered disasters. In order to pay less holy taxes in the next 3 years, all the holy vassal states will generally use various tricks. Of course, the most common one is to cry poor. So in private, some people call the Holy Tax Conference attached to the Holy Advent ceremony the Triennial Crying Poor Conference. Hearing this, Wright already understood. Are you talking about the pardon power of the Special Envoy? Yes, this year's Special Envoy of the First Empire of Saint Racina is Saint Vanessa. Or we should call her Vanessa Pedris. Wright rubbed his temples. The so-called Special Envoy immunity is the goddess's special grace. Because these special envoys will argue with the Holy See to pay less holy taxes for their countries. In the verbal battle between the two sides, it is inevitable that there will be cross-border remarks. Afra also gave these special envoys a limited time exemption in order to show justice. Let them fight for the legitimate rights and interests of their countries and people without any worries. But Wright did not expect that the other party would actually exploit this loophole. Seeing his sad face, the black-robed Archbishop Cardiwan laughed. In about 3 days, the first group of 16 envoys from the Holy Kingdoms will arrive. And your mortal enemy, the flower of thorns of the Holy Light Church, now the Lancer Princess of the First Empire, will make a comeback with her Holy Rose Knights. Let me tell you a secret gossip. This martial arts princess hates your humiliation so much that she can't sleep at night. Your portrait is hung on the straw man targets that they use for practice in the Holy Rose. Every one of them. It is said that Vanessa has 3 court painters specially hired to paint your portrait, but they can't supply them enough. The red cardinal slapped the black cardinal on the shoulder. What gossip? Didn't I tell you this yesterday when we were drinking? I was planning to say it today to cheer you up. Why did you say it first? Wright squinted at the 2 archbishops, regretting that he didn't use more force in the last blow. I didn't expect that. Just when I set up the pot to prepare the stew, someone would come to smash the pot and overturn the table. Wright sneered. Humph. It doesn't matter if she comes. She's just a defeated general. I showed mercy by exiling her back then. If she dares to show me her teeth again this time, I will definitely beat her up. Beat her up. Just when Wright was at a loss for words, Flando, wearing a maid outfit, came over with 2 cups of hot tea. She gently served the tea to the 2 archbishops, and then bowed to Wright. The tea is here, your highness. Seeing Flando's back as she turned and left, the 2 archbishops were stunned. Isn't this the famous troublemaker of the Protestant church, Flando? Wow. Right, you boy. I haven't seen you for 3 years, and you have improved more than just your strength. Wright waved his hands repeatedly. No, you misunderstood. The master, who had been silent all the time, grabbed Wright's wrist. Stinky boy. I warn you. You can't turn Vanessa into this. That's my beloved disciple. The cardinal also nodded repeatedly. Yes, there must be a limit to punishment. After all, she is the princess of the First Empire. You can't just focus on your own interests and hobbies. You also have to consider the political impact. I don't. Maids are not my hobbies. Before I'd finished speaking, Emily, who was dressed in a maid outfit, came over with the remaining 2 cups of hot tea and placed them in front of Wright and the master. The hot tea is here. Please enjoy it slowly. Wright immediately felt that 6 eyes were staring at him. He looked at Emily with a twitching mouth. Why are you wearing this? Emily felt wronged, pinching the corner of her clothes pitifully. You've torn all my clothes into pieces. I can only wear this. The 6 gazes became even more fierce. Wright realized that he might not be able to explain himself clearly, and he couldn't help but roar to the sky. Lilith. You schemed against me. Unexpectedly, Lilith came out with her face drooping, tears in her eyes, as if she was going to cry in the next second. You still have the nerve to cry? You, why are you crying? Woo woo. I wanted to put on a maid outfit too, and give you a fatal blow. But after looking around, I found that there was no size as small as mine. Chapter 46. Let's go and have fun. Wright was very depressed. He was the one who was framed, but he had to comfort the culprit. After coaxing Lilith, Wright explained the details to the 2 archbishops and Master Constant. Vanessa was willing to take advantage of the oath to come back, so she must have bad intentions. In addition to being on guard against her, the pot of the holy city must be more tightly closed to prevent the other party from taking advantage of the situation. After discussing the specific matters, the 3 of them stood up and said goodbye. Wright had originally planned to treat the 3 of them to a simple meal, but he didn't expect to be declined. Although the 3 of them recognized Wright's cooking skills, the holy city was now facing serious external and internal troubles, and they obviously didn't have the time to spare. After sending the 3 away, Wright had originally planned to take Emily and Lilith out for a walk and buy more casual clothes for them. But when he turned around and walked back, he keenly sensed a hint of dark aura. Wright didn't say anything, turned around and turned into the utility room of the manor. Sure enough, within half a minute after he closed the door, a bat flew in from the window. The bat landed and turned into a middle-aged man with fair complexion, silver hair and blue eyes. He knelt on one knee in front of Wright, holding his hand on his chest. Report to the boss. Number 89,757 salutes you. Why did you come to me instead of assisting your new king? Boss, the king asked me to come. We have unexpected gains in the process of clearing out the dark race. The vampire took out an envelope from his arms and presented it with both hands respectfully. Wright took it and opened it. It turned out to be a handwritten letter from a dross. You actually found a heretic? Good. Not bad. A great achievement. Wright put away the handwritten letter with great satisfaction. How is your new king doing? Report to the boss. The new king you arranged for us is really capable. Under his leadership, we have made great progress. I believe that it won't be long before I can give you a perfect answer. Don't underestimate the enemy. The situation this time is much more complicated than you think. By the way, Wright took out a magic crystal core, closed his eyes and read part of the information into it. The news of the upcoming Lancer Princess must be led to Adros. After all, they are the easiest to become Vanessa's breakthrough. Give the magic crystal to Adros. Everything I want to say is in it. By the way, if you encounter such a heretic again, don't act rashly. Come and report to me. Don't worry, boss. The vampire put away the magic crystal and bowed again. Then, I'll take my leave. Wright nodded slightly, and the latter immediately turned back into a bat and flew out of the window. The primordial fire cult. Interesting. Wright returned to the living room while pondering the information in the letter. As a result, Lilith was still depressed about what happened just now, and Emily seemed to have not recovered from countless deaths. Flander was there, trying to comprehend the mystery of the light ring. Wright couldn't help but sigh. Is there no normal person in this family except me? I'm really impressed. Flando, I will give you a day off today. Go back to the new church to play. Lilith, Emily, you two come with me. Today I will take you shopping and buy some new clothes. Then, I will take you to have some fun and relax. The two were obviously not interested in the fun that Wright mentioned, but which girl can resist shopping and buying new clothes? In fact, there are really some, such as Flando, who is exploring the true meaning of the ring. When she heard that Wright was going to give her a day off, the little girl was overjoyed. Great. Master, I'll go back right away. I'll teach my fellow Protestants the secrets of the Ring of Light. Wait. Wright stopped her quickly. You can't just go and spread the secrets of the Ring of Light like this. Why? Because new things will always be hated and resisted by old people, and they may even do a lot of extreme things out of fear. Have you forgotten how Protestantism was rejected by the Holy Light Church when it was first established? They haven't even fully accepted you now. Flando nodded vigorously. As a small leader among the Protestants, she knew too well how much contempt and persecution the Protestants had suffered along the way. Wright persuaded her patiently. His voice seemed to have some kind of magic. So, for your own safety, and for the long-term spread of the secret of the light ring, after you go back this time, don't make a big fuss. You'd better choose someone you absolutely trust, and develop him into a companion. Then you can find people you trust, and develop them one by one. Ahem. Companions. When you have the advantage in numbers, and are absolutely sure, then raise your arms, and call for a complete seizure of control over the Protestant Church. Let the secret of the light ring become the doctrine that guides the Protestant Church forward. Yes, your highness is so wise. Flando knows what to do. The little girl's eyes were full of admiration. After bowing deeply to Wright, she left the manor in high spirits. Looking at Flando's leaving back, Lilith was amazed. TSK. The Protestant Church split the Holy Light Church, and you split the Protestant Church. You are really amazing. Do you want new clothes? Oh, I'm praising you. Right, you are the best. Lilith is indeed a succubus. She changed from disgust to coquettishness in a second, which made Emily stunned. Must go? Emily was a little tangled in her heart. Of course, she also liked beautiful new clothes. But buying clothes means that a new round of magicians must last 100 seconds will begin again. If you don't want to go, I won't force you. Go. When Emily heard that Wright was going to leave her, her instinct instantly helped her make a decision. Wright gave her a thumbs up. Okay, for beauty, what's the harm in dying a few more times? Let's go. Just for your awareness, you can buy anything today. I'll pay. Wright immediately took the two of them on the carriage and headed towards the most prosperous commercial street outside the holy city. Because the Holy Advent ceremony was about to be held, more and more people came to the holy city for pilgrimage. But the carriage with the emblem of the Black Knight of Punishment still moved freely in the city. Emily was very excited looking at the prosperous shops on both sides and the dazzling array of goods. She had been longing for this place since the day she entered the city, and she didn't expect it to be even more prosperous now. Okay, we've arrived. Wright jumped off the carriage and opened the door of the carriage. Two beauties, start your crazy shopping trip. Emily got off the car quickly, looking at the crowded streets and countless shops with their own characteristics. Her heartbeat began to accelerate. Although she is a noble, this is the most prosperous street in the most prosperous city in the world. Really? Can I buy whatever I want? Emily, don't be polite with him. Lilith jumped out of the carriage. Shops on half of the street here call him boss when they see him. Ah. Emily widened her eyes in horror. Then, what about the other half? The other half. You have to call the landlord. Chapter 47. Persecution of the Evil God. Please read. Looking at Emily's horrified expression, Wright spread his hands. Is it necessary to be so surprised? Don't you think about it. Can those old stubborn people in the Holy See come up with such a good idea? Well, you must have encountered a lot of resistance in order to build such an innovative commercial street. Wright stroked his chin and narrowed his eyes slightly. Well, there is no resistance. The three major cathedrals, the Papal Palace, the Temple Council, and the Holy Knights. They all stopped you? No, they all supported me. After all, you also know that I'm famous for my good popularity and wide network of contacts in the Holy City. Lilith couldn't help rolling her eyes. Come on. Those people think that having such a huge project to consume his vigorous energy is better than him making trouble everywhere. How can they not support it? All the approval documents were prepared in less than a day, and all were specially approved. That half year can be said to be the most peaceful half year in the Holy City. Wright clapped his hands. Just tell me, is this street profitable now? Emily looked at Wright suspiciously. Since you are so rich, why do you still cheat in our family territory? Wright raised his eyelids. I did that to save people. If the holy water is distributed for free, there will definitely be people who take more and more for profit. If it is sold for money, this problem can be eliminated to a large extent. I can also confuse your teacher while determining how many households have come by counting the number of copper pesos received. Emily suddenly realized and looked at Wright with a little more admiration. Lilith chuckled. The truth is, it is impossible for him to go back to the Holy City to get money whenever he is short of money while traveling. That's why he cheated people all the way. Will you suffocate to death if you don't expose my tricks? Looking at the prosperous commercial street, Emily asked curiously, how much assets do you have now? Wright sighed. I don't know, probably not much. I only helped them get on the right track in the early stage of this commercial street, and later I stopped managing it because I thought it was too troublesome. In addition, I have been walking for 3 years, and I guess the money here is the same as the Holy Sword stall at the East Gate, which has been divided up by my 2 teachers. I was wondering at the time why the Pope's palace agreed to let the paladins take 70% of the Holy Sword. Now that I think about it, it is probably an exchange of interests. After all, paladins were not allowed to enter the Holy City as a whole before. In this way, the paladins outside the city take the lion's share of the 2 businesses, and the Pope's palace inside the city takes the lion's share. Lilith nodded again and again. Indeed, your Pope teacher values money more than his life. No matter how you think about it, it is impossible for him to suffer such a big loss for 3 years. Wright clapped his hands. Okay, although I don't have much money, at least I don't have to pay. Let's go and have a look at what we like. Great. The 2 girls immediately rushed into the nearest luxury clothing store, and the clerk in charge of guiding them hurriedly came to greet them. Wright also stepped into the store, but as soon as he stood firm, he heard a sharp roar from the store. Boss. Then, a fat man dressed as a businessman ran over with tears in his eyes and hugged Wright's thigh directly. Boss, you're really back. The rumors are actually true. That's great. Wright felt that the person in front of him looked familiar. He looked at him again and again before he asked tentatively, are you Grandad? Boss, you still remember me. I'm so grateful. I'm so honored. I can even close my eyes when I die. Okay, don't be so excited. Hearing such sincere flattery, Wright didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Grandad, don't you sell department stores? Why are you running a clothing store? Boss, you misunderstood. My Grandad department store chamber of commerce is booming under your teachings. But we have no plans to expand our business for the time being. I'm the rotating president of the United Chamber of Commerce of the Holy City Commercial Street, and I'm conducting inspections of various shops, and I just happened to find this one. Wright was stunned for a moment. United Chamber of Commerce? Oh, you went out to travel, so you don't know. This United Chamber of Commerce is led by the boss lady. Wait a minute. Wright stopped him. What boss lady? Grandad was also bewildered. It's Her Highness Saint Jonah. After you left, she has been taking care of the entire commercial street. As your wife. After hearing this, Wright rubbed his eyebrows. I should have expected it. Oh. The boss lady is really a strong woman. She has to deal with the affairs of the holy city during the day and take care of the trivial matters of the commercial street at night. She manages both public and private affairs. And she does everything in an orderly manner. She can even find time to learn how to make clothes from the tailor in the clothing store. You are so lucky, boss. You have such a good wife. Wright forced a stiff smile with great effort. Aren't you going on an inspection? Go quickly. No, boss. Since you are back, there are still a lot of documents in the Chamber of Commerce waiting for you to review. The boss's wife used to do this, but now that you are back, these things. Stop. Wright took Grandad off his thigh and put it upright. I now grant you, Grandad Woolfield, the right to handle all matters related to the Commercial Street United Chamber of Commerce. From now on, you are no longer a rotating president. You are the general manager of the Chamber of Commerce. Your status in the Chamber of Commerce is second only to me and Jonah. After that, Wright took out an attributeless magic crystal from his arms and left his mark with holy light. This is the proof. Take it. After receiving the magic crystal that symbolizes power, Grandad's lips trembled with excitement and tears welled up in his eyes. He just wanted to say something, but was interrupted by Wright. No flattery, no slogans, no crying and swearing. Now, go. Disappear immediately. Otherwise, I will dismiss you on the spot. Before Wright finished speaking, Grandad disappeared without a trace at a speed that was completely incompatible with his size. Watching his disappearing back, Wright couldn't help but sigh. It's a pity that he didn't join the army as a scout. Lilith happened to come over and stretched her neck to look. What are you looking at? An old friend. Maybe it can add a surprise to the good show in the holy city. Hey, where are the clothes you picked? HMPH. I won't pick any more. The clerk always leads me to the children's clothing section. Lilith pouted. What on earth is this fun you are talking about? Wright handed Idros's handwritten letter to Lilith, who immediately perked up after reading it. Great. It's time to have fun persecuting the evil god again. The primordial fire. I haven't heard of it. Well, it might be a newly emerged heterodox cult. Wright put the envelope away and grinned. It is said that they have gathered hundreds of people this time and are ready to make a big move during this ceremony. Today is the day of their gathering. After you have finished your visit, I will take you in quietly. Lilith licked her tongue excitedly. I like to see you ask the evil god some logical loopholes in its doctrine in front of so many believers, making the evil god hesitate and lose face. Also, in front of the evil god, after all the believers he has accumulated with great difficulty are abducted, the other part is evolution from astonishment to anger, and then to despair and defense. It's so delicious. Wright laughed. Today I'm going to try a new way of playing. By the way, do a little experiment. Begging for more reading. Dear readers, have pity on the fragile seedlings, who aren't Dow guarantees. From today on, 3 updates a day will be of guaranteed quality and quantity. There will be more updates after it is released. Please help Reddit. It will be even better if you have votes. Please. Chapter 48. Comparing evil cults. Wright took Lilith and Emily to stroll along the commercial street until the evening. In order to prevent being recognized by fanatics like Grandad, Wright asked Lilith to change his face. After they were tired of strolling, the 3 of them had a delicious meal in the dining area outside the commercial street, and then found a guard to transport all the spoils in a carriage back. Wright took the 2 girls and changed into the most common ordinary clothes, followed the crowds that dispersed in the commercial street in the evening, and left the holy city from the north gate. Looking at the low and messy houses around, Emily's eyes were full of curiosity. Hey, is this also the holy city? What are we doing here? Wright shook his head gently. We have already left the north gate. Of course not. This is a temporary residential area outside the holy city, also called Shengang Town. Hey, look at the guy in front. Does he look familiar? Emily looked forward. Oh, it's the waiter of the restaurant where we had dinner. Every inch of land in the holy city is worth a lot of money. Most of the service staff and workers you met today, and even some shop owners, have no place to stay in the holy city. Most of them live here, and over time it has become a small town, and it has expanded outward year by year. The current area is estimated to have caught up with the capital of an ordinary small principality. If the holy city is a beautiful flower, then Shengang Town is the soil at the root of the flower. Emily nodded as if she understood. Oh, I still don't understand why we are here. Did you finally remember your identity as the apprentice son of God and are ready to come down to understand the people's sentiments? Or is it that the Holy Light Church is preparing to expel the people here with the Holy Coming ceremony approaching? Wright rolled his eyes at her. You are really a little genius. Drive these people away. Forget about the ceremony. The holy city will be paralyzed tomorrow. But to be honest, Shengang Town is indeed quite chaotic. Many exiled sects and illegal element dare not stay in the strict inspection of the holy city, so they choose to live in Shengang Town. And today, we are here to bang a foreign cult called the Original Fire. Emily was stunned. Expel the cult? There are only 3 of us. Lilith comforted her. Don't worry, it's fun. Do you two usually play this? Unexpectedly, one person and one demon said in unison. Yeah. Lilith also patiently explained. We have been wandering outside for 3 years. The main source of income is to find a rich businessman or nobleman to live, like we did when we went to your house. Wright calls this eating the rich. Another is to find this kind of cult, ban them, and take the cult's wealth for ourselves. Wright said this is called playing in the wild. You don't have to be nervous. We are only responsible for watching the fun. Emily was relieved when she heard this. I'm good at this. Wright and the other 2 followed the flow of people going off work into the depths of Shengang Town, crossed the muddy streets, bypassed the alleys, where miscellaneous items were piled up, and finally arrived at the destination written on the letter. It should be this tavern. Wright stroked his chin. These people are really rampant. They actually chose the tavern as the place for an illegal assembly. It seems that the church pays too much attention to the defense of the holy city itself, but ignores this side. This is a big loophole. Lilith, go and catch her tongue. Lilith nodded slightly. She was petite and looked like a little girl. Most people near the tavern didn't take her seriously. Not long after, she came over with a big man whose mind was controlled. Wright was in a spiritual state and took Emily and followed the 2 into a small alley. Lilith pointed at the big man with a dull expression and analyzed. This man just came out of the tavern, looking around with a thoughtful look on his face. He should be an insider. Okay, read his memory and see what's going on. Lilith hooked her finger, and the big man bent down like a puppet. Lilith stretched out her hand and pressed it on his head, and soon her face showed joy. We are so lucky. This is a small leader who can take the 3 of us indirectly. Great. Let's go in without further ado. Emily hurriedly stopped the 2 of them. Wait a minute. Don't you want to know more information? For example, how many people are in this church? What are their doctrines? At least, you have to know the name of the god they worship, right? Wright waved his hand. No need. Those are external things. Remember, it's easy to bring down a cult. You just need to be more evil than him. Lilith also quite agreed with this point of view. She snapped her fingers lightly, and the big man was stunned. Hey, you 3 are finally here. Come on, follow me into the house. The meeting is about to begin, and the patriarch has important matters to announce. Wright got into the role in a second. Really? That's great. I love listening to the patriarch's teachings the most. If I don't listen for a day, I feel uncomfortable all over. Emily asked quietly from behind. Lilith, did you rewrite this person's memory? It's just a simple hypnosis. Rewriting memory. It's not impossible, but it consumes more magic power. The 3 followed the big man into the tavern and sat down in a corner. Wright looked around and smiled. Interesting. It's a comprehensive cult with great potential. Emily also looked around like him. I didn't find anything special. How do you know it's comprehensive and has potential? Look at the believers in the tavern. There are men, women, young and old, which shows that this cult covers a wide range. Unlike the mine god we killed that time, the believers are almost all minors, which is very single. Look again. Although there are all kinds of people here, young and middle-aged people account for the majority. Whether it is joining the army to fight, or working in agriculture, young and middle-aged people are the main force. Only by grasping the hearts of this part of the population can there be development in the future. Emily couldn't help but give a thumbs up. I feel you are so professional. Wright smiled casually. Nothing, just practice. The number of people in the tavern was slowly increasing, and the night outside the window was gradually thickening. Finally, when the tavern was overcrowded, an old man in a grey-black linen robe came out. With his appearance, the noisy tavern suddenly quieted down. Emily was thoughtful. From the respect of the believers for the founder and their spontaneous discipline, it can be seen that this cult does have potential. Fellow believers, hello. Tonight we gather here to praise the great primordial fire together. Thank it for bringing light, warmth and vitality to the world. The believers in the entire tavern raised their hands high, as if holding a ball of flame, and sang in unison. The primordial fire is endless. Although the three of them were a little slow, they were sitting far away and no one noticed. The founder was very satisfied with the performance of the believers, and continued to preach. Recently, the fanatics of the false god have strengthened the security of the false god's capital in order to hold the so-called Holy Coming ceremony. I received internal information that they have actually formed a new army from the Paladin order, replaced the Inquisition, and took control of the defense and public security of the false god's capital. This move has greatly exceeded our expectations, and has also increased the risk of missionary activities sharply. In order to ensure everyone's safety, I ask everyone to suspend all missionary activities in the false god's capital in the near future. Shift the focus of missionary work to the holy work town. Emily nodded repeatedly after listening. This patriarch is very sober, and knows to avoid the limelight temporarily. Oh, by the way, how do you usually start to ban cults? Bang. Before she finished speaking, Wright slammed the table and stood up. He pointed at the patriarch on the stage and shouted angrily, I object. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 49. Did you succeed? Emily was stunned by Wright's shout. This room full of cultists was no joke. Cults also have clergy, and because some evil gods have distorted vocations and divinity, their clergy are very difficult to deal with. At that moment, Emily was even ready for battle. Unexpectedly, Wright remained calm and walked towards the podium, opening his arms and shouting loudly, "We are about to fight to the death." Why did the patriarch surrender first? Now is a good opportunity to preach in the holy city. How can we just retreat to Shangan town like this? The defense of the holy city is strict, but that also means that the missionary activities of other heterodox cults will be greatly frustrated. Maybe many spineless sects will choose to retreat to Shangan town. By then, the missionary situation here must be very severe and the competition will be very fierce. On the other hand, there will be countless opportunities in the holy city. Not only should we not retreat, but we should do the opposite and preach in the holy city on a large scale. Completely establish our advantages. Make our name. After we preach in the holy city, the missionary work in Shangan town will become extremely smooth. When we compete with other sects for potential believers, we can directly ask the other party, "We dare to preach in the holy city, do you dare?" In such a comparison, potential believers will definitely be more fond of our great and supreme primordial fire. Such a rare opportunity for success. How can we give in like this? I don't agree. By the time he finished speaking, he had already stood on the podium. The believers below were talking about it, and it was obvious that everyone felt that what he said made some sense. Seeing that the situation was getting out of control, the patriarch spoke again. "No. We are too few in number now, and we can't afford to lose. It is precisely because of the small number of people that we cannot give up this opportunity to quickly recruit believers. Do you know how dangerous this time is? Risks and opportunities coexist. Although being cautious will not make mistakes, it will not achieve great things. Wright was in high spirits at this moment. If something is not difficult, then everyone can do it. If everyone can do it, how can we stand out, and how can we succeed? He turned to face the audience in the tavern, full of fighting spirit. Everyone, what kind of life do we live now? What kind of work do we do? What kind of life do those masters and ladies in the holy city live? What kind of work do they do? I believe everyone has witnessed it with their own eyes. Why? Why do we work 100 times harder than them, but our monthly wages are not as much as their meal money? Grandpa Joseph, who works hard to sell charcoal until dark every day, can only burn firewood in the freezing weather. Aunt Madonna, who is clever and skillful, cuts and sews countless gorgeous dresses, but the coarse linen clothes she wears are full of patches. In order to pay off her debts, the beautiful and kind-hearted Mrs. Robert had to go to the holy city to be a wet nurse, while her 1-month-old baby could only drink rice porridge at home. He cried hoarsely because of hunger. Guys, in the holy city, in the beautiful city we worked hard to build, it's full of lights, wine, and women. But we can only huddle in Shengang town to keep each other warm, worrying every day whether we will be expelled. Are you willing to live like this for the rest of your life? Are you willing for your children, and your children's children, to live like this for generations? Now, the opportunity to succeed is right in front of us. If we give up because of fear, how can we give an explanation to ourselves? How can we give an explanation to future generations? You are right. You are absolutely right. We must not give up this opportunity to succeed. The pub suddenly erupted with cheers. The young men who were full of vigor and vitality cheered, and the uncles and aunts who suffered from the hardships of life were all tearful and secretly wiped their eyes. Emily even stood up and applauded, tears welling up in her eyes. Good. That's very well said. Lilith pulled her back, tapped her on the forehead, and whispered, "Idiot. Don't get sucked into it." But I think what he said makes sense. Didn't you notice? He changed the concept halfway through. The second half is all about success. Does it have anything to do with the primordial fire? Yes. Emily suddenly realized, but still felt a little sad. But the examples he mentioned, such as Grandpa Joseph, Aunt Madonna and Mrs. Robert, are so touching. Those are the names he made up. Sometimes the charcoal seller is called Robert, and the nanny is Mrs. Madonna. Emily suddenly felt uncomfortable. Well, actually, I just felt my brain was hot, and the blood was rushing all over my body. I don't know why I got excited. Lilith sighed. It's not your fault. This is his little trick. Do you remember his social death field, when you led people to surround us in the jungle that day? Emily shuddered. I still remember it clearly. In fact, he is now releasing the social death field modified, fanatic field. People within the field. In Wright's words, the holy light will cause their heartbeats to speed up, blood flow to speed up, adrenaline to be secreted quickly, and the cerebral cortex to continue to be excited. Although many words are unknown, people who are affected will indeed easily fall into frenzy. Emily was quite excited. This is the correct way to use it. The social death field or something like that is too hard to describe. No, this usage is also very bad. Lilith shook her head helplessly. Okay, you concentrate. It's almost over. Don't get stuck in it. Emily smiled awkwardly. I try my best. Actually, the feeling of getting stuck in it is very comfortable and fascinating. At this moment, Wright's speech also reached its climax. What is success? I'll tell you what success is. Success is our only way out. If you want to look back at the past, and look at the present, and look forward to the future, you will understand. Apart from success, we have no choice. Some people say that there are 3 elements for people to survive: sunlight, air and water. In my opinion, that's totally wrong. The 3 elements for our survival are success, success, or fucking success. Understand the applause. Pa-pa-pa-pa-pa-pa-pa. The tavern burst into warm applause, and the fanatical people clapped crazily, as if they didn't know fatigue or pain. Even the patriarch, at this moment, was flushed with excitement, standing in a corner of the podium, clapping with tears in his eyes. At this time, Wright winked at Lilith, who immediately understood and quickly stood up and raised her hand. Then please ask. Lilith's voice was not loud, but with her unique ability as a succubus, it could penetrate the applause and reach everyone's ears. When do we start? The applause in the tavern soon stopped, and everyone looked at the podium with expectation. Right now. Right now. Move towards success, don't wait. Light smiled confidently and waved his fist again. Starting from this second, you will always embrace success earlier than the next second. The biggest enemy of success is procrastination. Procrastination will extinguish the fire in your heart. Now you are full of ambition, go home and lie on your bed. Waiting will not bring success, because success will not wait for you. Having said that, Light pulled the patriarch over everyone. This moment is the best time to move towards success. But before that, we should sincerely call for the great primordial fire. Let the supreme primordial fire witness his proudest believers. The courage and belief to successfully carry forward the cult and not fear anything. Come, Master Patriarch. Come, fellow believers. Let us together welcome the great primordial fire. Descend here. Chapter 50 Cricket Fighting Upgraded Version. Seeking follow-up reading. At first, the primordial fire was overjoyed. As a god, he could clearly feel the incomparable enthusiasm of his believers. The burning sensation from the high temperature of his soul even gave him the illusion that it was finally his turn to be so rich. He seemed to see believers all over the mountains and plains, singing his praises loudly to welcome his arrival. So, he responded to the call without even thinking about it. But when he really came to the world, he found that his believers didn't seem to have increased much. Although a little disappointed, fortunately everyone was still very enthusiastic. But, why is this landing place so familiar? It's so strange. Take another look. Isn't this the base camp of the holy light goddess in the mortal world? Exclamation mark. An ominous premonition enveloped his heart. The primordial fire turned around and evacuated the moment he came, and he didn't even intend to greet the believers. Unfortunately, since it was a trap, how could he be allowed to escape? Lilith, who was sitting in the corner, had already taken out a birdcage-like magic device and gently turned on the switch. The birdcage began to buzz, and the entire space was instantly enveloped by a mysterious force. The part of the divine body that the primordial fire had descended into the world was immediately blocked. The purple-black flame continued to twist and turned into a half-body figure suspended in the air. The believers praised the great primordial fire and bowed to the ground. Emily looked at the quaint birdcage curiously. What kind of magic device is this? One of the 3 sets of equipment that the Tower of Truth used to hunt inferior gods, Anidus's dream catcher. Emily was shocked. She had heard Wright talk about it before. The Tower of Truth had hunted gods in its heyday. Her nominal master, the great sage of reason, was a terrifying existence that slaughtered higher gods. But today, seeing the instrument specifically used to hunt gods, it was a bit difficult to accept for a while. After all, in the hearts of ordinary people, gods are supreme beings. What about the other 2 sets? We have Stoker's God and Demon Atlas, but unfortunately the Spear of Truth for special attack on gods has been destroyed. Emily panicked. The weapons used for attack have been destroyed. So how are you going to deal with the gods? Lilith spread her hands. There are many ways. Mocking the other party's doctrines, mocking the other party's missionary ideas, sneering at the other party's divinity, and taking away his believers in front of the other party. This is completely provoking the other party. It will only make the gods go crazy. Lilith covered her mouth and smiled. Don't worry, the laws of the mortal world do not allow gods to descend. The reason why these evil gods and the goddess of light can descend for a short time is because they have believers in the mortal world and hold a summoning ceremony. The strength of the gods' bodies and the amount of divine power they can put in the mortal world are greatly related to the number of believers, the degree of fanaticism and the preciousness of the sacrifices. For the people in this small tavern, there are no sacrifices or altars, and they are not summoned on a specific date. If the believers were not fanatical enough, the gods might not be willing to come. Even if they came, their strength was quite average. Emily listened to Lilith's clear and logical talk, and couldn't help but give a thumbs up. It seems that you are very skilled. In Wright's words, there is no other reason, just practice makes perfect. Boom. While the two women were chatting, the original fire had already punched the podium. Wright easily escaped with the patriarch and set up a light barrier to protect the pagans. Hey, hey, hey. This is not good, Lord God. If you get angry casually, you will hurt your lovely believers. What? You want to kill all the believers and force the summons to end, right? You realize that things were not going well and just stopped pretending, right? So, I hate you guys the most, you wild guys. You have no technical skills at all. The original fire was panicked, but also very angry. I can see at a glance that you are not my believer. Who are you? What do you want to do? Wright's body was flashing with holy light, and he posed in a pose that he thought was very handsome. I'm just an ordinary holy light knight passing by. You better remember this. Then, he raised one hand high and roared to the sky. It's decided to be you, holy light goddess Aphra. The brilliant holy light bloomed, forming a gorgeous divine prayer array to summon the holy light goddess to come. Lilith in the distance suddenly realized, oh, I was wondering what new trick he wanted to play. It turned out to be a modified version of the hell cricket fight. Well, watching the holy light goddess fight the evil god is really fun. However, the array was running, but nothing happened. The primordial fire punched over, and Wright had to activate the light flash to quickly dodge. Strange, why didn't I summon her? Did Aphra go to take a shower? Ah, I remember. Wright slapped his forehead. I have the holy shackles on me, no wonder. Lilith shouted at him from a distance. Even if you don't have the holy shackles on you, the goddess of holy light will not respond to your summons. I say, are you too optimistic about the relationship between you and her? Under the continuous bombardment of the primordial fire, the poor tavern has been reduced to ashes. However, those scared believers huddled under the light barrier cast by Wright, and they are fine for the time being. Wright came to the two women with a flash of light and put one hand on Emila's head. Come. You come to summon the goddess to come. Me. I'm just an ordinary believer, not a clergyman. No choice, only you are the most suitable now. Emily was stunned and thought to herself that it was Wright. The people around were all pagans, except Wright. There were only Lilith and herself. It's impossible to let Lilith, a succubus, be the summoner. She then closed her eyes and let light's holy light flow through her body. Relax. Relax. Be careful. I haven't done this before. Lilith squinted her eyes, wanting to say something but stopping herself, and finally chose silence. With Emily as the medium, light once again opened the summoning circle of the holy light goddess. At this time, the evil god also realized that things were not good and rushed over here frantically. At the critical moment, a strong light fell from the sky, and the shadow of the holy light goddess in battle form, wearing armor and holding a light spear, descended here. The surging shockwave directly shook the original fire away. The warm holy light illuminated the surroundings, bringing salvation to the pagans in the barrier. Large groups of pagans knelt down and chose to pray to the holy light goddess directly. The residents who were awakened around saw such a heroic shadow of the goddess, and they also knelt down and prayed continuously. Aphra first waved her hand to bless the praying people, and then glared at light fiercely. The meaning is very simple. I will settle with you later. Then, she held the spear of light and faced the primordial fire. Her pretty face was as cold as ice, and her eyebrows were full of anger. You, so good, actually ran to my holy city to provoke me. If the primordial fire had tears, it would have cried a long time ago. No one may believe it, but he really didn't mean it. He was also a victim. At this time, Light was holding a glass of beer, sitting among the beautiful girls, and cheering to the goddess of holy light. Go, Aphra. Use 100,000 volts. End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone. See you in the next video.